Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular folks talking about model railroading. I'm your host, Andy Dorsch, and joining me tonight in the studio is Mike Ostertag. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Better than I was last week. Holy cow.
Boy, you look like I heard you were like death warmed over. You were just
That
sick,
was
huh?
that would have been an upgrade. Man, that would have holy cow. Yeah. And it just kind of came on. It was just like, what in the hell is going on here? It's like,
Oh man, well, get it out of the way early before cold and
right?
flu season hits. Right, there
Yeah.
you go.
See, and so now I should be good. I'm not going to be sick at all the rest of the winter.
Well, that's
Right?
good.
That's the way it works, right?
Not now that you said that.
Not now that I said that. Yeah.
Touch wood, right?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I tell you what. Whoa, it was. I don't recommend whatever the heck it is that I had. It was not fun.
Was it just like the flu, or like were you kind of out of both ends here? What was going on?
I felt perfectly fine. I just had a sore throat.
Oh,
and then all of a sudden,
crud.
And then all of a sudden, I woke up one day and I'm like, man, it hurts to swallow. This is not good. And I'm like, well, I can still breathe. And all right, I got to go to work. I'll take some of this. And, I just kind of muscled through things. And then finally I'd get done with work. I'd come home. I'd hit a fever and I'd lay on the couch. That would break. The fever would break within minutes. And then I'd go to bed. Next day, it would be a little bit worse. And then all of a sudden, that was like 3 days. And then the next thing it was, bang, gone.
Really?
Yeah, just gone after 3.5 days. Still got a little bit of a little bit when I, take too big of a gulp of something or whatever. But yeah, now it's kind of like, all right. So now tomorrow morning, I'm expecting to be in even better shape with any kind of luck. And the Korean pepper chicken wings probably aren't going to help that any. But hey, I had to treat myself. I wasn't able to eat a whole lot. I lost almost 9 pounds in like 4 or 5 days because I wasn't hardly eating anything because I couldn't. It was just, it was craziness.
And I gain weight.
I know. That's the way I am always at. And to top it all off, in all honesty, to be honest with you, what the coup de Gracie, as they say.
The coup de Gracie.
Only in France.
Yeah, only in France.
Pardon your French.
Is the fact that Joy sends me this meme that says, my husband gets sick and loses 10 pounds. I exercise 5 days a week and I gain 5. What's the deal? And I'm sitting here going, well, you know what? Come here and give me a kiss.
Yep. I'll pass. That's for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm feeling better. I've been 2 weeks now since I've been able to get downstairs to do anything. I'm getting the itch. I want to get, I have a whole laundry list of stuff I got to get caught up on. And the terminal is making some huge strides. So
yes, I do see that. You are doing quite a bit of work in expanding your railroad.
And so are you, by the way.
No,
don't be modest. Come on.
I'm going to be modest. But
you had a hell of an accomplishment here this week, and
I did.
Tell you what, it looks awesome.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
I mean, you didn't derail, right?
No, nothing's derailed.
Oh, then
we've knock on wood there again. But yeah.
So
we can talk about me later.
Okay,
I don't want to be rude to our guest Kevin tonight. Kevin Tully is joining us here on the Second Section podcast.
And my son, apparently. Come here, buddy.
Your son?
I told him he could say hi. This is Gunner.
Yeah.
Hi, Gunner.
Hey, Gunner, how's it going?
I'm sorry to interrupt the podcast.
Oh, that's not an interruption at all.
No.
I was actually going to the bathroom, but I'll say hi.
He's my protege. He's big into the Sioux line and the UP. So he's
And
much
the
to
Chicago Northwest.
much to my dismay. I was really hoping for an Erie, Lackawanna, or a Pensy guy, but he go to what you know, right? And he's growing up around the UP and
I even get the title Walking Encyclopedia.
he does.
Oh, so you're so well versed in trains then, huh, Daniel?
A gunner. Yeah,
No, Gunner.
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 Sorry.
Yeah, he is pretty well versed. He's big into history and science, so
Oh,
pretty much he's a big reader. So at school they call him their walking encyclopedia. He's always got something to bring to the table. So
that's
awesome.
good. Well, welcome to the show, Gunner. Have a good night.
Boeing's falling apart planes.
So he's watching a video about how Boeing's planes are falling apart. Nice.
Yeah.
Keeps up on the current events.
I was gonna say that's got engineer written all over him. Holy cow!
Oh yeah, he's big into that stuff. Like,
that's
it's
super
the
cool.
Family lineage, pretty much. So
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, Kevin. So for those who don't know who you are, would you be so kind as to give the section crew just a bit of an introduction about yourself and your interests in railroads and model railroads, and then kind of the topic we're going to talk about tonight?
sure. I'm not from Chicago. I live near Chicago now, but I'm not from there.
Okay.
I'm from a little dairy town in Western New York called Dalton, which no one's ever heard of. If I say Nunday, which is 3 miles away, everybody knows where that town is, but nobody knows where Dalton is, it always amuses me because Nunday is equally off the beaten path. But anyway, Dalton is on the main line between Buffalo, the Erie main line between Buffalo and Corning, Gang Mills. And so I grew up there, right, literally 50 yards from the main line, listening to trains going across the grade crossing at the end of the feed mill my whole life. And that was before they had the laws where they couldn't, give the grade crossing signal at 2 a.m. They just would. So I sleep like a baby if I'm near the tracks. But anyway, then I spent 18 years in the military.
Okay.
Traveling the world and doing fun things, going to tourist vacation spots like Qatar and Panama and Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. All the fun
nice
places.
All the popular destinations.
Yeah, the popular destinations.
Can I ask what branch of the military you were in?
I was in the Army for 2 years, and I was in the Air Force
Okay.
for 16 and a half years. And,
awesome.
Go big
I did.
blue.
I very proudly, and I toot my own horn a little bit. I very proudly say that I was 8 years of that. I was in Air Force Special Operations. And,
very cool.
I wasn't, a snake eater like a PJ or one of the combat controllers, but I did my part, and I got to see a lot of the world. It was a lot of fun. I did some railroading there. I grew up model railroading with my brothers. We had the typical 4x8 plywood pike in the den of our house. And when they left, it was a long time between that because they were a lot older than I was. So they all went in the military. The last one, my brother Gary, left when I think I was 7 or 8, I think. And the railroad got taken down when he left, and I was kind of out of it until I was about 15. I joined the Model Railroad Club in Hornell, where we moved, which was the home for the Erie Railroad. That was the main shops. When I was there, it was Morrison Knudsen had the shops. They had taken it over from GE, so they were still rebuilding things there. That was a fun Model Railroad Club to be in at 15 because the old guys, it was the typical Model Railroad Club in the early 80s where the guys all stayed there until 1 o'clock in the morning, and they all drank coffee until 1 o'clock in the morning, and they all smoked like forest fires until 1 o'clock in the morning. So I would come home smelling like I had been to a bar all night when I was like 15. But there were probably 8 or 10 of the really old guys, and they were legit Erie employees.
Oh, cool.
Erie. There was one guy who was a Lehigh Valley guy. So that was really cool, to be around all those guys. Of course, now I wish I was around those guys because I would be picking their brains all the time, but they're of course gone because I'm a lot older than now, but it was a good club to be a member of back then. And then I went in the service, and, I didn't do any model railroading until I got to Alaska. There's a club on Elmendorf called the Military Society of Model Railroad Engineers. And I believe they're still around.
Nope.
You could be a civilian and be a member of it as well. And
That's cool.
they had these giant barracks up there, because it's cold. So, it wasn't lots of little buildings. It would be one really long building. And they had the whole basement gifted to them by the MWR, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, to build a layout in. And it was huge. I mean, it had to have been 120 feet long and 40 feet
wow.
wide. And when I was there, we had a single level layout, but it was gigantic. They were building it. But I got back into model railroading then. I had a lot of really good guys up there. And then when transferred,
what year was that?
That was in I was in Alaska in like 95, 6, 7, or not, no, 96, 7, 8, 9.
That was part of the reason why Almendorf was one of my first spots.
Yeah.
On my list. Yeah.
Yeah. They have a huge layout there. And it was really cool because they had in the fall, they had this very Alaskan event called Fur Rondy. And in the old days, in the 1800s and probably the early 1900s, that was when the trappers would all come down out of the mountains, and there would be this fur rendezvous, and they would do all their trading and buy supplies and whatever. And the town of Anchorage has continued that. And that's where I discovered that there was a massive live steam 7.5 inch gauge layout in I don't think it's in Eagle River. It's near Anchorage, but it's huge layout. I mean, I think they have like 2 or 3 miles of track.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
And I made friends with this guy named Jim Posey, who had been a Santa Fe. He had worked on the Santa Fe, and he had worked in the shops, and he'd been a fireman. I think he said he started as a fireman, but he had built a USRA heavy mic in his barn, machined all the parts himself. Because,
whoa.
And that's what's cool about these old guys. He had worked in the shops on these engines, right? So, because he was in his late 70s, early 80s when I knew him. And so he took the Model Railroader Steam Cyclopedia to Kinko's and had them take the Mikado blueprint out of that book. And he said, I want you to blow this up until the connecting rod is this dimension. And he had it on the side of his barn and on the wall inside of his barn. And he had a shaper. I don't know if you guys are machinists, but a shaper is like a really, really old time planing machine. But he had a shaper. He had an old Bridgeport 2J and a lathe. I forget what the lathe was. I think it was an old Clausing lathe. And he made this entire locomotive himself. I mean, he ordered like the generator and he ordered the air compressor and stuff, but the wheels and everything he made in his barn. And so I got to work on it with him. And one day we were out, I went with him and this other guy named Leo Burkhartsmeyer, who's also a really big character. Or no, I'm sorry, Larry Vandersloot. He was from Michigan. I actually just found out he passed away not long ago. And I totally could have gone and seen him. I didn't know he could come back from Alaska and move back to Michigan, but he was another character too. But anyway, we were out at the steam, out at the live steam tracks one day, the club. And we got the steam built up in the mic, and he goes, "You want to take it out?" I'm like, yes. He said, "Well, just be easy on the throttle." Yeah. So he jumped in one of the gondolas.
Pass that opportunity up.
And this engine was like for real. I forget how many, it ran on 200 pounds of steam. And I mean, it was the real deal. And it had all kinds of power. You don't having never driven a real Mikado, a heavy Mike, I got on this thing and I didn't know what it was going to be. It's a toy. It's like a 1,500-pound toy or however much it weighed. And I got on it and I pulled the throttle back. Man, that engine had some power.
Did he do everything like create the Johnson levers and all the
all
stuff
of it.
like that?
Yeah, the whole thing.
And he had everything, like all the piping and fluting and everything else, like the gauge,
the valves,
100%. You had valves. You had the Johnson bar. You had a reversing lever. You had an air brake, and in the down in the cab, you had little lights in the cab. So if you're running at dusk, you could see the gauges. But there were valves for opening the injector, and there was a sight glass for the boiler water. I mean, it was. I learned how to run a real steam engine from this guy because he had a 7.5-inch gauge for real steam engine, and it was he had bought like the reverser and he bought the air compressor and that kind of stuff, but it had a little electric generator on it. You get in, you'd open up the little valve and it goes, the steam would come out the generator, and the lights would come on. It was fantastic. It was such an awesome engine.
How long did it take for him to build it, like from start to finish? To have any idea? I mean, that sounds almost like a lifelong project. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a lot of guys that do that. I didn't really stay in that community when I left, the live steam community when I left. There was a guy there who was a die maker, and he was building a 4-truck Shay, and he had a Challenger as well. And the 4-truck Shay, the crown gears on the 4-truck Shay were amazing. And he had done all of that without CNC. He did it all by manual machining. And when I left, he had the trucks were all done and the deck was done. And I think he had started on the boiler. So he was, and I mean, he had it was a big Shay too. It was like the big West Side Shay with the 4-cylinder. I think it's 4 cylinders, the big, I used to know more about Shays than I do now, but it was awesome. I couldn't wait to, Jim actually had a Shay also, but the problem, and I understood why this guy was building that big West Side Shay, because Jim's Shay was a little 3-truck Shay, more something like a logging company would have. Yeah. And it was good for switching, but the boiler was so small that you were, it sounds funny to say, but you'd run out of steam fast.
They're not built for speed either.
No. Well, that wasn't really the problem. The problem was that, when you get down to that size, yes, everything is smaller, but your ability to make steam in a small boiler at a rapid rate goes down too, because your burner just isn't that big,
Yeah.
And they were both oil fired. He said he didn't want to mess with making them coal fired. Most guys, I think, are probably using coal or some kind of fuel oil fired. But it was fun to do switching with and stuff, but you couldn't take it out on the road. It'd run out of steam, and then you'd have to sit there and wait for the boiler to come back up. But it was really cool. It was a good experience, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget both those guys. Not to get off of trains, but Larry Vandersloot was a character, and he owned an airport. We went out in the wintertime. We would go out to his place because he had an airport, a grass airport, and he had a pole barn out there that was heated. So we would take the engines out there in the wintertime to do maintenance on them and stuff, because Jim's barn was not heated. And the first time I went out there, that's where I discovered Prairie Home Companion radio show, because they would listen to it on Sunday while we were working on the engines.
Yeah.
And and Larry lived in this like 3-room house that was built on the airfield. And he was a really simple guy, and in his hangar, he had a Stutz biplane. I think I'm saying that correct. I'm not a plane guy, but he had a Stutz biplane, right?
Like an old German, like an old German Stutz.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think they sold those over here.
Okay,
I'm probably saying it wrong. No, Stearman. I'm sorry, Stearman. It was a Stearman biplane. Sorry, I'm reaching back like, half my life ago to remember all this stuff. But anyway, I asked him about it one day, and I said, "Where'd you get that? How did they even get that thing up here?" He goes, "Oh, they didn't bring it up here. I flew it up here." I said, What? He said, yeah, I flew that plane here from Florida. I bought it from a guy in Florida. So I didn't know this. If you don't have a radio in your plane, you cannot fly above a certain altitude, right? And you're in a
400,
biplane.
400 feet. I think it is, or something like
Yeah, that could be.
that. It's not
saying,
very high.
I remember him saying it was really low.
Yeah.
So he had a compass. He had a compass like on his thigh, right? And he had an interstate map, and that's how he got to Alaska. He would and when you come into the little airports, there's a way you have to like fly over the airport, and you wag your wings, or you do something to get their attention, and then you got to get like hand signals from the tower. So you got to fly like by the tower a couple times to see what they want you to do. And he would land and get gasoline, and then he flew it to I don't remember how he got it across Canada, but he flew it across Canada. And I seem to remember him telling me that there was a couple of times when he was like up in Saskatchewan where he just landed on a road and pulled up to a gas station and fueled up. And that had been something for
just
people
like you see in the movies.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. He was a character.
That's awesome.
I mean, that guy's got like
oh my goodness,
brass cojones, he said it was a little frightening when he had to go across the divide, because he had to fly the plane probably higher than the engine really liked. And
I
bet. And then the turbulence on top of that. I mean, those planes weren't exactly known for
well, they're light. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
stability.
But he was a character, boy. I miss those guys. I know that for sure. I know Larry has passed away, and Jim was, he remembered Santa Fe Steam working in the shop. So he's for sure gone, but good experiences with those guys.
That's one of the reasons for town names on water towers. And then,
yeah, that's true.
And then
is that right?
So they know where they are, I guess.
So they could, yeah. And then our friend Jim Rint did a model of the town of Saco, and one of the Saco, Wisconsin, and one of the buildings there, I believe it's burned down now, if I remember hearing right, but it had the aviation directions on the roof, so you knew which direction to go to Green Bay, which direction, and it was like, I guess there were things like that all over the United States.
I seem to remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and it's like it was one of the last ones that was still around intact,
Yeah, we have just because we're on the flight path to EAA in Oshkosh, where I live in Ripon, and there's on the ground the city of Ripon put hedges in basically this field out in the side of town that spells out Ripon, so they knew exactly where they were and how to get onto the highway to get into the Whitman field.
Yeah, so, we have a town near the next town over from Hornell is Canisteo, and Canisteo has a famous sign that's on the side of one of the hills that's in a hedgerow style. Yeah, I didn't know there was any other people crazy enough to do that, but apparently more than Canisteo. But so anyway, I left Alaska, and I went from there. I went to Florida, and I didn't really do any model trains there. I kind of took another break from model trains because I was doing some more interesting things in the military, and didn't have the time for it. And then I have another a daughter and a son that are in their 20s, and they came along, and that kind of ended that a little bit too. When I was in stationed in Pennsylvania, my ex-wife was stationed at Fort Meade. We kind of lived in between the two, and I can't remember the guy's name. I actually just met somebody at RPM that knew him. There's a guy in Maryland that's in Columbia. I think it's Columbia, Maryland. He's got this massive layout in his basement, and he let me run my trains over there. So I had trains that I'd built in Alaska, and I went over there and ran those. And then I got into I got out of the service altogether and started building custom cars and hot rods, and had a business doing that for 20 years. And
wow,
I really kind of didn't do any trains then either, but I got back into trains in my son was born in 2014. and I discovered Prairie Scale Model Railroaders in Lombard, Illinois. It was like a mile from my house. And so I joined up with them. My son was 3, I think. He's pretty much grown up at the train club. I went from there. I joined. One of the reasons I joined that club was I walked in and I introduced myself, and this guy Brian Bell, that's the president, super nice guy, and Dan Schiller is one of the project managers. Actually, it's a really large club, and it's the most bizarre club I've ever been in because everyone is like really nice. There's like 100 people in the club, and they're all really nice people. And it's so hard to get into a club. Yeah, it's so hard to be in a club and not have a couple, and it's just because you got
always a turd in the punch bowl, right?
No, I think it's more, having been in a completely creative field, building hot rods and custom cars and show rods. And we built, like, I think we were on the cover of maybe 16 or 17 magazines throughout the years.
No kidding.
Lots of articles. I was on Hot Rod Television, built a couple of giveaway cars, one for Craftsman, one for Raybestos. You end up being around a lot of creative people, and that industry is filled with creative people. And the one thing I've learned about creative people is when you're that kind of person, everybody's got their own little nuances and their little eccentricities and stuff. So you really kind of have to just get used to that. But, and I think model railroading is very much the same. Everybody has their skill. They're into weathering or art or, building structures or track line, but it's all really kind of a form of art. So they're all very creative people, and everybody comes from different backgrounds. And I think you just can't get 10 creative people. You can't get 5 creative people in a group and not have one of them disagree with the way you're going to do something. And there's a Zen proverb that says there's many paths to the top of the mountain. And that I think has always kind of resounded with me. When you're around creative people, you really have to have a lot of grace with them because they have a different background, they have a different job, they have different stresses in their life, whatever. But when you meet that one person that's creative and it's their way or the highway, that's the person that can kind of try your patience a little bit. And I'm telling you, there's 100 people in this club. There's 30, 40 active members that are building the layout and always running and stuff. And you just don't meet somebody that you just cuts you the wrong way on your grain. It's crazy.
So how do you when you're in a situation like that, honestly, because Andy and I know a lot of people that are very much fit that exact mold.
I mean,
tons of them. How do you filter through all the noise to maintain a nice, calm, even playing field? So that way, not necessarily playing field, but just to keep everybody on an even keel. So that way things don't get kind of, for lack of a better way, chippy would be a good way of saying it. You know what I'm saying?
So something I wish I had learned when I was a lot younger. I wish, I tell my son this because he's 10 and I want him to know it now because I wish someone had told me when I was 10. You do have to kind of feel a person out, I think. But at some point in time, you just have to say, you know what, you're right. And just leave it. Because if you get around another person, modeler person, and I mean, now we're talking about just like daily life, but I have realized that especially today, unfortunately, you have a very strong chance of meeting someone during your day, especially if you deal with the public. They're not interested in knowing the correct information. They're interested in winning the conversation.
Yep.
And when it took me, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer sometimes. And my wife will actually, I have 2 ex-wives. They'll tell you as well. And I can be bullheaded. That's kind of wearing away as I get older because I'm getting smarter. It makes me think about this comedian that I saw that said, when he was 12, he realized his father was the dumbest person on the face of the earth, and really kind of stopped listening to him. And when he turned 20, he realized he could not believe how much his father had learned in the last 8 years. And I thought that was a pretty creative way of admitting
That's
that
amazing.
he was wrong and his dad
Yep,
actually
yep.
was pretty smart the whole time.
Yeah,
But
I've always heard it put you have two options in life. You can either be right or you can be happy.
yeah, well, so I think it's learning. I'm kind of a listener. I mean, we at my other business, in the military, the job that I did, I'd often have to deal with your run-of-the-mill average person overseas that was not a military person, and they weren't a person of authority, but they wanted to know what you were doing there, or or you would meet that government official that thought that they could just climb on board your airplane, and you're like, no, sorry, this is sovereign U.S. soil. You're not coming in the aircraft. And there's a way to deal with those people, and of course they gave us training for that too. And I'm a pretty dyed-in-the-wool Missouri Synod Lutheran too, so I try to live the life, as they used to say. I try to live in the way. But I think when you meet another modeler, the one thing I do enjoy about the majority of model railroaders, or just modelers in general, they genuinely want to see what you've built. How did you do it? Is there a skill they can pick up you? And that's one thing I really enjoy about the model railroading community, kind of over the automotive community, because there's a lot of hardheads there that, you try to sell them something, or you try to ask them a question, and then suddenly it's some kind of, black art that they can't teach you, or they're going to, get stoned to death by the local public. I don't know. But I think all railroaders in general are not like that. And I can kind of sniff out that person too, that's just kind of trying to use me to get their own odd ends. So I like I said, in any given club, trains, cars, trucks, RC planes, on and on and on, I think there's, every once in a while, you're just going to get that one guy that's just a hard head. And I usually try to, I actually worked one of my first jobs out here in Illinois. I worked for this guy, and his father ran the parts store, and his father was the grumpiest person you've ever met in your entire life. And he was just rude all the time. He was rude. And one of the other guys that worked there said, "Are you going to let him talk to you like that?" I said, "No, I'm going to break him." It's like, "What are you talking about? You're going to break him?" I said, "I'm going to break him. I'm going to find his thing, and I'm going to talk to him about his thing. And I'm going to figure out why he can't just be a nice person to people," because he would be rude to the customers and stuff. They're not in business anymore. Shocks guys. And so I whenever I had the opportunity to be around him, I would listen to him. And whenever his son was around him, he would just talk like a normal human being. And one day, I don't remember the television show, but he mentioned his son asked him, "What did he do last night?" "Oh, I watched my favorite show, blah, blah, blah." So I started watching this television show. I watched it all the time. Like it was on cable, so you could watch it every day. So I went home. I must have watched 20 episodes of this show, brought myself up to speed. And one day when I walked into work, I was going by him, and he said something to his son about that show. And I made a comment about what had gone on last night. And he kind of looked at me for a minute, and he was like nice to me ever after that. He just was so calloused against everybody that I think he just didn't realize that there were other people, human beings in the room. So I thought it would be fun to break him. So I did. And I actually got him to laugh one day too. My coworkers were like, "That's crazy. You were able to do that." So anyway, getting back to the original question, we're kind of getting off the beaten path here. The guys,
we never do that on this show.
The guys at the train club, I asked them, it wasn't finished, and I don't know that I would have joined if it had been finished. I like running trains, but my passion is building structures, heavy industry structures. And they mentioned that there was going to be a steel mill on the layout, but the guy that was building it had left. So they showed me what they still had that he had kind of cobbled together, and how big it was going to be. And and I was hooked. I'm like, I'm in. So I bought these
Yeah.
videos from a good friend of mine, Jeff Bourne, who owns Prairie Work Productions, and he does these how-to videos on super detailing of Walther's blast furnace, and he does all these informational videos too, like like documentaries on taconite trains and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
So I watched the videos, and in the videos, he makes a gate valve, this thing called a gate valve. And being a professional fabricator, I'm watching him cut all these parts out, and I'm watching him assemble them. And when I finally met him, I was like, does that take you about an hour and a half to do it, one valve? He goes, yeah. So I got 4 blast furnaces to build at this train club times 15 valves per furnace times an hour and a half per valve. So it's 60 valves times an hour and a half. And I'm like, I'm not spending a full-time job for a month building gate valves. So I taught myself CAD. I knew one of the original guys at Fusion 360, and a friend of mine had pestered me into downloading it, and I had just not touched it because I didn't think I was smart enough to do CAD. And he, so now I'm faced with having to build these gate valves, and I'm like, I'm going to learn CAD, and I'll get somebody to 3D print them. So I drew up a gate valve. I was going to have Shapeways print them until I found out how much Shapeways used to charge. And so I did a really foolish thing. I spent a lot of money on a 3D printer when 3D printers were not a thing. I spent $3,500 on a desktop 3D printer, kind of the only one in existence then that I know of, at least.
Wow.
And I printed out a gate valve, and I put a photo of it up on the Steelman modeling page on Facebook, and the thread lit up like a Christmas tree with guys wanting to buy them. And I was like, light bulb.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
And, it wasn't so much the money. I did want to try and pay off the printer. It wasn't so much the money as I had realized that there were other guys out there that really didn't want to sit for an hour and a half and build 15 gate valves either. And so I figured out how much it would cost to produce them and ship them and all that, and I put them up for sale. I think it was 3 gate valves for $5 or something, and I sold those things like hotcakes. And I actually had someone message me and say, I had my blast furnace. I have that video, and I had the blast furnace, and I got to that part and I put it on a shelf, and it's been there for like 3 years. And I bought some of your valves and got it back down, and I started working on it again. And it made me feel really good. I really genuinely like helping people. And so then a guy wanted a pug mill, and another guy messaged me. And, a lot of the stuff in the catalog is either stuff that I think is cool because I'm a trained nerd like everybody else. And I love heavy industry. I don't know what it is about. It's just I think it's the concept of human beings building something so huge and complex that fascinates me. And so, the more people wanted, the more I drew up and put on the site, or I thought something was cool and put that up on the site. And I get, apparently other people think it's pretty cool too, because it's like there's over 400 items in HO scale on the site now. And
Wow.
branching off into some of the stuff, you sell like once a year, and some of the stuff sells once a week. So, and I get it, if I look at it this way, if someone asked me to draw something and produce it, and I'm like, yeah, I think that would sell, and I sell one to him and maybe one other guy, I'm okay with that because I've helped somebody further their model along, their model railroad along. So I'm okay with that stuff.
Do you just print stuff on demand then? Like I'm sure you have like a stock inventory of certain things, but like the things that you typically wouldn't sell like 40 of them at a show or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you have like okay. Like for me, I know you and I have talked about that. What was it? The wet bin.
Yeah.
And everything like that. And it was only available in HO. I asked you if you could do it in S. You're accommodating.
I completely lied to you and said I would do it and still haven't.
You lied. Yeah, and still haven't. Yeah. But I mean,
I will do it.
No, but I mean, in all seriousness, is that, I mean, you're not going to have a box of 20 wet bins and HO
No.
skills sitting around. You're going to wait until the orders come in, right?
So I have, now that I'm doing shows, we do, it's like in the Big Lebowski, it's the royal we.
The royal we.
Yeah.
So we go to, if we ran through the show year, we go to Amherst. There's a show in the spring that I can't think of the name of it. And then we go to RPM. I was just at the NER convention. And I went that. Those guys are super nice guys. They invited me out there, and it's near where I grew up. And I'm like, how can I resist going back to the stomping grounds? Sure. Met some really good guys there. We do the Naperville RPM now that it's back.
Yep.
Nice.
I really don't want to do a ton of shows a year, maybe 6. That's kind of what I'm keeping the number to, because I don't want to live the carnival life again.
You going to do Train Fest this year?
No. I would like to do Train Fest. The 2 things that have kept me from doing Train Fest, the first thing was I heard horror stories about getting in and out of the venue as a vendor. And
this
I've
is had
that
a new venue this year.
Well, supposedly, or I could say it the wrong way, supposedly, it drives me crazy.
Supposedly.
Yeah, that drives me nuts.
Isn't it the worst?
Irregardlessly.
Yeah, right.
Oh God.
So I had an experience at McCormick Place here in Chicago when World of Wheels used to be there, and that place is literally a nightmare to get in and out of as a vendor. And that of course frightens me away. There's people that have been there. I have not, and it could be complete bunk, but I'm going to listen to the guys that have told me it's kind of a pain to get in and out of. And then for a 10x10, one table in a 10x10, it's $600.
What?
So I usually get 5 tables. This year, I actually probably should get 7 tables, but I need an employee, and I don't want to have an employee. I'll wait until Gunner is like 14 and take him with me. 'Cause I'm cheap like that.
No, it's just economical. It's not cheap. It's
Yeah.
not cheap.
Well, 5 tables is a lot for one person when you've got a lot of stuff out. I mean,
right.
Unfortunately, I've had things lifted off my table, which I would not expect at a model train show. But and it's not like it's all the time. But if I had 7 tables, I would bring more product. But how do you put it all out and then keep an eyeball on it? And most importantly, how do you, as one person with that much there, how do you really offer customer service? I mean, you're able to talk to one person, and at a big show like that, nobody wants to stand around waiting for, the guy that's telling stories about being in Alaska and working on a big, live steam mic.
Right.
I don't really, so if I was to go to Train Fest and get 5 tables, it would be all of my profits, and I'd have to probably pay to go to the show, so I mean, I don't know whether that's because of the venue or their tables are just going to be $600. When they go back to the West Allis Fairgrounds, maybe the tables will be more reasonable. I don't know, but
if we have an insider, Mike Slater. He's been familiar with Train Fest. Maybe he could do some digging for us and post in there. What's the deal with Train Fest, and are the prices going to be coming down?
Show, well, I mean, it's not a cheap, that tells me it's not a cheap show, but if you're wanting to get only Rapido and Athearn, all right, they can do, they're not offering things for sale. They can do their entire show in a 10x10, but the last time I was at Train Fest, Yankee Dabbler was there, and they had like a room made out, and I can't believe that they would pay I can't believe that they would pay $3,000 or $4,000 for that booth and be able to drive all the way out here from out east and make money and go home and cover the hotel. I mean, shows what the public doesn't realize about a show. And they're he's right. Train Fest is expensive, right? It's not a cheap show. There is no cheap show, because the guy that goes to the local swap meet and pays $40 a table or $20 a table, he doesn't have a hotel and he doesn't have, 900 miles worth of
Right.
gasoline, and he
Yep.
doesn't have all the tolls on the
Food.
turnpike and the Ohio State Turnpike between here and Amherst, and then buying food because you're not able to have a kitchen. So you're eating at restaurants the whole time. And let's face it, $100 is not going to go very far. Whereas before 2020, you could probably do the whole show on $100 worth of food. So, I mean,
Right.
And it's not like you have I'm not trying to say it's not, but I mean, it's like the steel mill stuff. That's kind of a regional type of thing. I mean, there's steel mills in different parts of the country, but the Pennsylvania, Illinois, Indiana, that's big steel country right through there. It's like,
yeah,
you gotta make sure you don't out kick your coverage, so to speak. You know what I mean?
I take, so we could talk about the companies here for a minute, because we were joking a little bit, and it is a little bit of a joke, right? And it's that I have 3 company names, right? I actually have 4.
Oh, jeez.
Because, with actually by Ray Arnott's suggestion, because I had Steel Mill Modeler Supply for 7 years, right? And when I started getting into the grain stuff, which again, I just have fun doing that, so it's not like I'm trying to take over the world or people are giving me, I've got some kind of crystal ball and I can tell what's going to sell. I just like equipment.
Yeah.
And drawing structures and stuff. I think it's fascinating. And I like learning the process. So Ray suggested that, because now I've got Steel Mill Modeler Supply and Southern Tier Grain Modeler Supply. And I knew that I wanted to somehow have like an umbrella name with these different things underneath of it. And the only reason I really did that is, one of the things I learned in the aftermarket automotive world is guys that own muscle cars are not coming to a hot rod shop to have their Camaro worked on. And guys with a 32 Ford with a Y block and a Muncie 4-speed in it are not going to a Corvette shop to have their hot rod worked on. It's apples and oranges, it's all got an engine in it. Yeah, it's all got a transmission in it, but it really is apples and oranges, And that's why there are Corvette restoration places, and all they do is Corvettes, because the Corvette guys are not going to the regular restoration houses, right? So I realized that the modelers were probably going to do the same thing. No one that's modeling ag in Iowa is going to go to Steel Mill Model. They're not going to think, I'm going to go to Steel Mill Modeler Supply and buy Butler grain bins, right? Yep. And the same is true the other way around. So, and I do this full time now. I retired from aftermarket automotive completely. I have nothing more to do with it. I retired from it in March, partially because I've been married for 2 years to this wonderful woman that I met, and she walked into my studio at our old house one day, and because I would come home from work, and I would work till 11 o'clock at night, 3D printing and drawing and shipping orders. And I started having people ask me if I would build them things. So now I got scale modeling, which is, another fun sidetrack story. But I realized, when I was talking to Ray about all of it, he goes, well, you need a name that's easy to remember. He said, why don't you just use Tully Models? I'm like, sounds good to me. So I got a hold of my IT guy. He got tullymodels.com. It's easier to remember for people. You meet him at a show. Yeah, just type in Tully Models. It's, and
doing it.
Take you right to the page. He made me a landing page. So you go there. I haven't really done anything with the Tully Models side of it, scale modeling page yet. But from there, you can go to Steel Mill Modeling or Grain Modeler Supply and find stuff. So, it really has become a hydra.
Yeah.
I cut one off and another one pops up. Then I had these guys. I didn't realize I like armor modeling too.
Yeah.
Not put in scale. I don't have the room to have tanks all over the place. But I've always wanted to do, since I was a little kid and saw tanks on flat cars, I've always wanted to do a World War II armor movement.
Oh, that would be so cool.
I met this guy who had a bunch. I didn't want to onesie twosie. It wasn't working buying Sherman tanks and trucks, from the train show. Roco mini tanks is gone. Herpa owns it now, but they didn't come back out with everything. And I met this guy through eBay. I noticed that he had a lot of the same thing. I'm like, hey, I want to buy like a bunch of these. And he said, how many? I said, well, I want 50 Sherman tanks. He said, I can do that. I said, okay, great. He said, I have 40,000 Roco mini tanks in my basement. And I thought for sure in this email, he must have hit too many zeros. There's no 40,000 vehicles. So I go to this guy's house. He's in Chicago. I go to this guy's house. Turns out, much like model train nerds that have too many cars, there are war gamers who have these giant collections of tanks and trucks and things. And when they pass away or get out of the hobby, he buys the whole collection and then piecemeals it for sale, right? And I got to his house, and I'm not kidding you. He had baker's racks throughout his basement, big basement, full house basement in this old, Victorian era house. And he had those totes like you can slide under your bed.
Yeah.
He had those stacked with cardboard inside, stacked 3 vehicles high, filled with deuce and a halves or Sherman tanks or Abrams or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God. So I told him, he said, I got all these ones that are missing parts. I commented to him, I said, oh, well, I'll take the ones with the missing parts if you sell them to me for cheaper, because I'll just 3D print the parts to replace for them. And he went, 3D print the parts. So yeah. So now I 3D print parts for him, replacement parts, because obviously the vehicles are worth more if they've got all the pieces. Under the name Fort Indian Town Gap Supply. So I make parts for these guys that have these, because these guys, these war gamers too, they lose something and now their tank doesn't have a hatch on it, or the making gun got broken or whatever. So I make parts for them too. So there's like 4 names, right? So it's kind of a crazy circus, if you will, of names, but I think it fits the bill and it keeps people on track of what they're looking for,
So just go to tullymodels.com then. That's where we want to go to.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it's actually really easy to navigate.
Is it?
Oh yeah, I'm on it right now. It's separated by Steel Mill Modeler Supply and Southern Tier Grain Modeler Supply, and then he's got a whole list of stuff on the one side. Oh, here, why am I just describing
Why don't you just share it, Mike? Why don't we show? Let's show. Let's show the world what's going on.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, I forgot we have this technology.
We have the technology.
Yeah.
So my partner in crime in the automotive business was this guy named Chad Hill, who owns a graphic design studio called Django Studios. And I called him up, and he actually made all these logos for me. The scale modeling by Kevin J. Tully one, I'm like, that's so awesome. He did it in like 2 hours and sent it back to me. I'm like, oh my God, does that just like fall out of your hands?
How it's amazing those graphic designers can just cook something up with just like a cocktail napkin and a sketch. And
yeah, right.
It's unbelievable.
They really are. They are also fabricators. They're just digital fabricators,
Yeah,
they definitely fit the bill. But he did the logo for. I got to get some shirts made up. But
So why don't we walk let's get into the products a bit here, Kevin. So let's walk through the Steel Mill Modelers Supply. Now we had why don't you drive, Mike?
Okay.
Yeah.
You just tell me which road to take here. That side.
Take that one, the Steel Mill Modelers Supply.
There we go.
I don't have everything that someone needs, but I have a lot of things people need to model steel mills. And, the thing about modeling steel mills, Walthers did 3 releases of the blast furnace and some of the other buildings. But a steel mill is crazy gigantic, and it has a crazy number of buildings, a lot of which are repurposed from whatever their former life was. And other buildings are purpose built, but you really do have to kind of be friendly with being a scratch builder. with the idea of being a scratch builder or a kit basher to build a steel mill layout. And so what I try to do is, rather than, make whole buildings for people and take the modeling part out of it, because it is model railroading, right? You should still be a modeler. I try to take the laborious or the tedious things out of it, especially for someone that wants to super detail something, much like Canon and Company does for, diesel engine modelers, or Precision Scale Company does for the steam engine guys. The little pieces, the valves, the pipe fittings, I do have larger things. Like if you click on basic oxygen furnace, there's actually a basic oxygen furnace you can buy right there. Slag pots and things like that. Yeah. I don't have a building, but I have the vessel itself. Yeah. That guy. I do a bunch of things for blast furnaces. I have a bunch of stuff for, that's an HO scale guy standing next to it, just to give you how big
Holy
those
cow.
things are.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's probably 4 or 5 inches from it on the table there. So I mean, it's
really
massive. It's the size of a giant coffee cup.
Holy cow!
I actually had somebody tell me I should try to get them made out of ceramics, so you could have like a coffee cup that was a BOF. That would be kind of cool. But I do a bunch of stuff. Carry furnace is a big, there's a link for carry furnace there. So I do a bunch of the stuff if somebody wants to model carry furnace, which is in Pittsburgh. I do the stoves and the burners, and so I mean, you can, I was actually just at carry furnace on Tuesday. I know a really, really good guy named Rick Rollins, who is the head of the Youngstown Steel Heritage Museum. I hope we got you the name of the museum right there for you, Rick. He's a big wig over at Carry Furnace too, and he very graciously said, I asked him, I need to get some measurements and I want to make some maps of the pipes there and things. And these carry furnace auxiliary gas washers, those have always been kind of that platform that's next to the stoves has always been kind of a mystery. And you can't see where the pipes go below there, and nobody really knew what those things were. And Rick was nice enough to go up on the platform one day for me remotely. I asked him over the internet, and he said, yeah, these are they did a lot of experimental stuff here. These are some kind of like an auxiliary or secondary gas washer for the gas going into the burners. And, but nobody could see where the pipes all went. So he took a bunch of pictures for me, and they were very helpful. But if you're going to build this in scale, because I make all the parts, I make the furnace, the stoves, and the auxiliary gas washers now. Everybody that knows me knows that if something's on my site, it's because I've either drawn it from a print or I've gone to the place and measured it. It's very prototypical. And so he very graciously allowed me to come in and kind of have a hands free, and I couldn't really go where I wanted. I had to stay in the safe areas, but I could go more places than
look at the detail on that.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the older prints. I need to take new pictures of those because the printers that I have now are even better than when I printed those.
Yeah, but that's amazing, Kevin. The detail is just incredible. Even though it's an older print, it still looks awesome.
Yeah, it's a crappy photo too. Those are actually rivets, and there's bolts. And if you look at a newer item, a newer photo rather, that's on a really old iPhone. If you were to look at a more modern product of mine, you can actually see the nut bolt washer detail.
Really?
Oh yeah,
like the hex formation, not just a rounded blob.
Oh yeah, no, it's not a rounded blob. If you look at, I'm trying to think of something on here that you could go look at.
How about the Alice Chalmers car?
That's a new product. We just released that, and it's going over really, really well.
This is crazy.
I just realized with that zoom in there, I forgot to paint the wooden tackboard wood. Thanks for letting me see that. I'll have to go back and take that picture again.
Sorry.
Yeah. Don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Pan to the right, Mike.
But the CAD and the 3D printing have gotten a lot better. And I mean, can you go back to the main, like zoom out and go to the other photos?
Yeah.
There should be a photo of that car on the other side. Go to that car.
Yeah, if you click on it, and then there should be two.
Oh no, I don't think you can see it. Click on that one there, and then so if you zoom in on the left hand side of the car, do you see the Thrall builder's plate
right here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So that actually says Thrall 1958. It says Thrall, I forget, Thrall Freight Car Company or something. But I found a real builder's plate and copied it, and then so it's on the car.
Wow.
And you can see the little nuts and bolts on the grab irons, and a couple of cut levers there from Plano.
That's
you
awesome.
can there's a bracket there that's on the real car for an airline. I didn't put an airline on this
right here.
Yeah, you can put an airline in there. They aren't provided in the kit. I had thought about providing them in the kit, and to be honest with you, I couldn't find anybody's. In the old days. Sorry, I knocked some stuff over here that's under the desk.
All right.
In the old days, I could have just gotten them from like Details West or Details Associates and gotten some nice airlines, but it's so hard to get stuff from them since Athearn started using all their stuff now. So
that's incredible.
It is really, really good.
Just how smooth the print is, and how that is just amazing to me.
So these are available right now on the website, right?
Oh yeah, yep. I've got about 40 of them to pack. I shipped some today, but I think I've got 44 other orders for those cars, and I'm about to release. Actually, I can go get one and show it to you if you want. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Yeah, look at this is such a unique car, right?
Right.
And load that. It would be the thing that you could put middle of the train that would just go ahead and grab your attention right back after you had your locomotive.
Let me
drop it.
Let me stop sharing here for a second so we can
bring. So this is a hydroelectric rotor. So in a hydroelectric plant, you've got that thing that was in the I don't know if the camera will focus on that. It's got all the bolt detail or the holes and the plates on the top. Because when they shipped these, it was shipped like this. There's little flat pieces welded to it right here that it sat on H columns on the car, and then the other 6 rotors were separate pieces that were shipped on a flat car along with it. And so on a hydro that thing that's in the other Alice Chalmers car, that's a turbine inlet housing for a Francis turbine. So Alice Chalmers made those, and they also made the Francis turbine impellers, and then they also made the rotors for the generator. And they shipped these things all in those cars. I've got pictures of 2 different styles. I've got pictures of this one, and I'm gonna release this next week, and then there's another one that I'll draw. It's slightly different looking, but it's the same concept. So that this would be bolted to the impeller, and this thing would spin, and it would have, I'm assuming it would have magnets on the end. I'm not a hydroelectric engineer. I'm assuming it would have magnets on the end of here, and it would turn inside the stator and generate power. But they're just cool cars. I'm a nerd for goofy cars. If you look through the freight car section of the site, you'll see lots of oddball loads and freight cars.
Let's go take a look at that for a second here.
Yes, let's
see.
I hope you're so if you go down, you have to go down pretty far. There's a lot of categories there. It's right there, freight car loads.
Oh,
wow.
Calcium carbide containers, all kinds of steel mill stuff. I have 3 different versions of calcium carbide containers. There's those ones there are still used, the 1950s style.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the decals for a car. So
Ah.
AHM had these cars, and they're fictitious cars. They never existed.
Oh, really?
But they're shockingly, someone that worked at AHM or whoever did the original car. Now I've like spruced this one up. It has much better grab irons and stirrup steps, Tichy stirrup steps on it. And I lowered the car because they sit really high. But and I made decals for it because, if anybody that knows about the Lehigh Valley and the Reading, they both had lots, and Pensy, they all had lots of really specialized cars that they owned for shipping out of the steel mills and stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the day, all the railroads had that. They all had their own cars that they built, in their own shops. And I liked this car. My private road name is in New York and Pennsylvania. And calcium carbide just happens. I don't know if it still is or not, but it used to be made in Buffalo. And so I thought, well, this car is a car that my road built. So I sell the decals for it. But interestingly enough, these calcium carbide containers are real prototype containers. And when I printed one out, I happened to have one of these cars, and I went over and it slipped right into the car. So I'm guessing that
Just dropped in.
I'm guessing whoever designed that car designed it with legit calcium carbide containers. Now these loads with the racks on them, I'm about to release those, and I actually have them modeled. I just haven't released them because I haven't had time to sit and put the tie downs on, because those tie downs are actually, there's a spring at the top of it with like an eye bolt, and then it's a chain that goes down to the car with one of those ratchet chain deals on it. And I haven't had time to sit down and do all that, because I don't want to post it up and not have it on a loaded car so that people could see what it was going to look like, as a model.
So that just goes on a regular standard, like 60-foot flat car there then?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Crazy. That is insane.
And so they're modular. They're modular. So you get it's not going to focus on I can't get to focus.
Let me stop sharing. Hold on a second. There we go.
I have Kevin. You can still share, Mike. I have Kevin up on the screen now.
My camera is not going to focus on this. But anyway, you get the decals, and then it comes as one of these, and then you get two freestanding ones to put in between, and that way a guy can buy as many as he wants. Because if you're doing a 50-foot flat car, you don't need as many as you would need for like a 65-foot flat car or something like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Reshare.
And I just haven't released those yet because I got to sit and have time to model. I don't like releasing a load unless you've scale model it so people can see what it should look like. So
yeah, that's super. So calcium carbide, what is that used in, like making ice melt?
It's used in making acetylene.
Acetylene.
There's other uses for it too, but the gas that comes off of it when it comes in contact with water is acetylene.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, really?
Little miner's lamps. So if you see a miner's lamp from the old days, that miner's lamp has two chambers in it and a little valve, and then in the bottom chamber they would put a chunk of calcium carbide, and that had a little brass tube that came off of it into the reflector, so that's where your flame would be. And then in the upper compartment there would be water, and there was a little needle valve in there, so you could open the needle valve so that the water would drip on the calcium carbide and make acetylene gas. And then you light the flame in the miner's lamp, and it gives off a reflection in the lamp, and it burns white. So
yeah.
Wow.
But they use it for a lot of other stuff too. So those containers, they use them on top of a thing called an acetylene generator. So those containers have almost like a hopper, like on the bottom of a covered hopper. They have a gate, right? And the container that has to be kept watertight, so that they actually put the container on the top of the acetylene generator and then open the gate so that the calcium carbide starts going into the generator.
That's
Wow.
interesting.
That's another AHM car that people thought was kind of a Fubi car. And it sort of is. DuPont had 2 series of these. They called them dry chemical tote cars, right? They're a container that you can take out of there and you can carry dry chemical in them. This style with the fish belly flat car underneath of it, I think they had 4 of those. 4 or 6, I can't remember. And then the later ones, they had like 14 or 15 straight deck cars. And actually, the only place that AHM really kind of screwed those up was, you see the billboard is higher up.
Oh, sure.
And there's an opening in the side of the car there, where on the AHM car, it's got like a V setup where the opening should be. But anyway, so nobody made the decals for them. AHM did not release them as a DuPont car. So I scoured and finally found 2 photos, because nobody knew what color the cars were either. And I finally found 2 color photos of the cars. They were dark blue. And I found, I looked in the railway equipment guide and found the road numbers for them and how many cars there were. So you can actually order this as a kit. It comes with the decals and it comes with the containers, and the car, once you model it, you have to provide your own trucks and couplers. But once you model it and you put metal wheel sets and couplers on it, it comes out really, really close to being the correct NMRA weight as well. So you don't have to add weight to the car because the load's in it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's crazy. It's amazing.
Those cars came out of Buffalo. And they went all over the country.
It's so interesting how there's specialized cars to handle very specific types of materials. Like,
oh yeah, totally.
It's just blowing my mind. Like, this is like, you see the box car and you know the covered hopper, but like some of these specialized cars are really, really cool, and just having them in a consist, you know, to bust up the boxcar covered hopper monotony. And then you see one of these turbines rolling down on a flat car, or, you know, these calcium carbide cars. That would be so cool.
That stuff has to get to where it needs to go somehow, right?
Right.
I mean, they just not everything goes by truck, you know. A lot of times you can't. But this stuff would be so heavy to put on a roadway that there'd be no way. I don't think there'd be a road in the United States that could handle a lot of this stuff, you know.
Oh yeah, some of them like that. If you go down a little bit more, there's the large mill roll.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are made at Lehigh Heavy Forge to this day, and that's solid steel, and that's what they use in a rolling mill stand to roll. You know, I don't know what they'd roll with that one. One of the steel mill guys that might be listening to the show would be able to tell you better than I would, but they're carried on a 300-ton flat car. And interestingly enough, the gentleman that I got this from, he sent me, he either works there or works with Lehigh Heavy Forge. And he actually got me the loading diagram, because I'd had other guys ask me for a mill roll, and I never knew the dimensions, and I didn't just want to like go on the fly with making a shape.
Yeah.
And so he got me the loading diagram, which is included with this mill roll kit that's from Lehigh Heavy Forge, and it specifies how to load the roll and all
nice
materials you need to do it. So I'm really, really into modeling open top commodity loads, more than just stacks of I-beams or whatever. I just you go to a layout, if you go to someone's operating session, like you said, the empty flat cars and the empty gondolas going by, or the gondolas full of scrap, you can only see just so many of those, And for me, when I go rail fanning, other guys are looking for the heritage units, or they're looking for a particular, car or something like that. I'm the guy that jumps out of the car and I'm jumping around like a 5-year-old that's got to go to the bathroom when I see a heavy duty flat car go by and it's got some goofy load on it, or the gondola with some crazy load in it.
Our friend Luke Lemons always uses the phrase that, because he models the Sioux line, and as you know, being a modeler and fan of the Sioux line also, the Sioux was a pretty, it was a pretty generic plain Jane kind of railroad, and it takes the odd to make the normal generic kind of stand out more.
Yeah.
And these kind of cars would be, you might see this car one time in 30 years of watching trains. You may never see that car ever again.
Right.
And
right.
that's kind of one of the things that is so cool about some of this stuff. I mean, and we could do things all the time in our modeling. I mean, it's our railroads, we can do what we want, but I mean, it's like, for me, myself personally, what blows me away is, yeah, this is a 300-ton car, but the car when it's empty is 120, over 100,000
pounds.
It's 100. It's like a 160-ton car, empty. It's like, that's insane. I mean, it's covered hoppers loaded are 125. I mean, that's, it's about 75% of that. So I mean, how much would that be? About 100? Well,
it's a 75-ton car.
75-ton car. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's 150,000 pounds, it'd be 75 tons.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just nuts.
Yeah. So the mill, to answer your viewers' question there, they've been making these mill rolls like this since I don't know, 40s or 50s, because those 300-ton cars have been around for a while, and they ship them on Casgro cars now. So Casgro's red and ready, right? They've got all the KRL, they've got all the 340-ton flat cars, straight deck cars and stuff. So even in modern times, a guy that I met, I don't want to say I'm friends with him, but he's a super nice guy at Railfan Models. He does most of the Casgro cars. And when you go to his site, they're not cheap, but they're spot on, like legit prototype cars. And people got to think about how much work goes into producing a kit like that.
Right.
But he does you can get modern Casgro heavy duty flat cars from him, and they're beautiful cars. And there's Walters. Walters has made 10 12 axle cars and 10 axle cars
cable
and stuff
sheave.
like that too.
I was just gonna say, Andy, you're gonna need one of these.
Yes.
So there's a prototype photo there too of that. That's a 90-ton flat car, the press center flat car, which they're a cool little car because they're speaking of cool? Casgro.
That's awesome.
Speaking of Casgro, right? Ready.
That is so cool.
Yeah, they're just cool. And actually, I had a guy at the NER show come up to me and tell me that Kodak had these big rolls, and there's one on display, and I meant to go over and get measurements of it before I left Western New York, but I didn't. I took the day off and hung out with my sister. But they had these big rolls that the film was made on, and there's one on display in a park in Rochester, and it's this big. I couldn't believe how gigantic it was. But he said they probably would have, when they brought those in, Kodak had their own little railroad. They had interplant railroad, and they would have moved those around to take them to the building where they were in, the factory that they were in on a press center car. So that's another. I'm going to go get measurements of that sooner or later and get that one made too. Go down a little more. You want to see a giant load it's a fun load. That's a cool load, but go to the next page, maybe.
Page 4.
Yeah. Down. Yeah, the Westinghouse stator load.
Westinghouse. Yes.
So
So-
that's a 580,000 pound load.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
So, and there's flat cars with much higher capacity, and of course the Queen Mary had a really high capacity too. But I just think it's cool. I read that and I'm like, oh my god, I have to model that. I have to
Yeah.
model a 580,000. I mean, it's full of copper, right? So I mean,
right.
very cool.
So
There's the real one.
So I have no knowledge of what these are used for. So what would they use a stator that big for?
So that's in a hydroelectric plant, probably. Any big power generating plant.
Yeah.
The stator is the part of the motor that doesn't move. So that's full of the copper windings.
Yep. Yeah. Right.
But
Because I'm thinking like the stator that's on
Oh.
your
on your model
on
train
your little
car,
electric
or your,
on your
your
model
electric train motor.
locomotives.
Yeah. 580,000 pounds. And they make bigger ones than that too, I think.
Look at
But
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, I'm going back. Okay.
So let's
you
go
know
back
what?
to the load. Let's zoom in.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? That's enough, Kevin. I mean, honest. I mean, even look at the detail on the little hatches and all that.
Yeah.
Good Lord, man, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's fun to do.
This is
That's
awesome.
So just on the steel mill, I guess, modelers supply side, how many different, I guess, you said something to the tune of over 400 different products? Is that just
Yeah.
on that, or is that all day with your other I guess side companies that you have going on?
No, I think it's the combined steel mill and the steel mill stuff and the Southern Tier grain modeler supply stuff. But I don't really count. I last time I looked at the number of products, it was the first number was 4. I think it's a little more than that now. It's a little more than 400, but it's just cool stuff to do.
Yeah. So you cover a lot of the big time heavy equipment stuff, especially covering the steel side of things. So I'm going to ask a very selfish question, and I'm sure you get asked this by tons and tons of modelers. But do you do anything on like the mining side of the world? So
I
like
don't. The
Go ahead.
cable sheave and maybe some motors and pipe fittings and stuff is kind of as close as I get to that stuff. I just came out with the track hopper grates. I mean, I suppose a mine could use those.
Yeah, right.
I suppose I would make mine stuff. I haven't anybody ask me about it. Those were actually really fun to make, the track hopper grates.
So this would be for when they would bring taconite into the steel mill, right?
Yeah, this is on a high line that I built for a guy. But you could use that at anywhere you're bringing things in. An old timey grain operation where they're
there you go.
Before they had the pneumatic, the vacuum pressure power units, or even before that when they had the pneumatic gate that would go up to the bottom of the hopper hatch, or the hopper unloading gate. You could use it at like a gravel pit or kind of anywhere, but they were fun
on the deck of an ore dock.
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, sure you could. Yeah, you could use it up there. And it's made to take it's made to take
Thanks, Mike.
it's made to take code 83 or code 100 rail. So
Okay.
Imagine that.
That's weird. I do them in S and O scale too, so I sell those in S and O scale too.
That's
awesome. That's really cool. So do you also get into like the ingots and like the pot transporter cars too? Or slag?
I make a bunch of slag pots, and I make a bunch of ingots or ladles and ingot molds and ingots, hot ingots.
I thought I saw that someplace, Kevin. Where is
There's
that?
there's one that says Ingot Equipment. If you go up a little bit,
Oh, right here. Yep, Ingot Equipment. Sorry, I passed it up.
Oh.
I knew I've seen it before.
so there's a stripper there, and there's ingot molds. There's this hot ingot transfer car that they used between Bethlehem and Lehigh Heavy Forge. And I'm actually going to do. They had a bigger one that was a 12 axle car. I need to get better photos of that one too, because I've done some updates on it. You know, I keep saying, I know you guys hear me. And your viewers keep hearing me say I need to update. I mean, when I started doing this full time, I was a little bit nervous that I would not have enough to do. I could work 80-hour weeks right now for probably the next year and still not catch up. So I mean, it's like a crazy amount of work.
But look at that car.
Yeah.
This is the prototype photo, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's the
right.
prototype
you look at
photo.
that,
Yep.
and then you look at the model, and it's like it's damn near spot on. I mean, it is.
Yes.
There's
Yeah, and the print now is a lot better too. It's the printers have come a long way, and that car that's a photo is probably 6 years old. I need to take
Really?
a much nicer photo of that car now, and it's not painted. It's got better brake equipment on it. The stirrup steps are part of the car now. Yeah, it's just a much better car. I need to update it. I need to take like a week and update all my photos.
Would these have been kept mainly on plant property?
No,
Or-
that's on the main line. That's in a
Oh,
train.
that's
right
a main
there.
line. Oh, okay, all right.
Yep.
Sorry, I must have missed that. No,
They cast the. They used, I don't know where they do it now, but I've been told, I don't know this for certain, but I've been told that there's some of these in Ohio.
Oh wow,
But
Oh.
that kind of looks like Union Railroad type switch engine there. That's what-
yeah, the blue.
yeah, the blue.
But yeah, they put the ingot in the inside of there. I'm not really sure how the car works. I actually met somebody through email that was telling me some things that apparently I thought that the big tube on the end there, the big pipe, was for maybe pumping argon or something into the car to keep to keep the oxygen low in the car. But he said that's some kind of combustion tube, so I'm not really sure what that's for.
Oh.
But I do know that they still go to Lehigh Heavy Forge with these things. That's what I don't know that for positive, but that's what I was told. I've never seen it in a train, but yeah, they right on the main line in a train. Yeah,
Super
that's
cool.
That's really really neat.
that's why they got reporting marks and everything on them, right? Because they
I
go all over.
suppose. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, BNLE Bob, he knows what he knows better than I do about that stuff. So I am going to do I am going to do the 12 axle car though, because I have prints for it. If you see over behind me here, I'm backwards in the camera. If you see right here, this stack that's kind of drooping down.
Yeah.
Those are prints. Those are about 30% of the prints that I have yet to work off of to make new stuff.
Wow.
No moss grows on the Rolling Stone, I guess you would say.
No kidding,
No.
right?
And it's so much fun for me to meet these guys. I mean, when I did the Alice Chalmers car, I've wanted to do that car. I want to do all the Alice Chalmers cars, and I actually have information to do all of them now. The next car we'll come out with is 402, which looks a little bit like the 401 400 car that we were showing earlier. It's just shorter. It's not got as long of a well in it. That car has a 30-foot well in it. I think the other car, I'd have to look at the print. I think the other car has like a 16-foot well or an 18-foot well, something like that. But I meet all these guys that either used to work there, or they had a friend that worked there, or their dad worked at the place, and they get me a photo that I didn't have, or they'll get me a print I didn't have. And it's so awesome to meet. That's the thing I love about Facebook and about the internet now, is the giant resource that it is to meet former employees or guys that were actually on the railroad that really help make something prototype, so that it's not just a FUBI, it's legit,
Yeah.
And the amount of people that helped me with the Alice Chalmers car alone, because those cars don't exist. There were only 2 of that car. They were at West Allis plant, and the 402 car was stationed at the York plant in Pennsylvania. And believe it or not, there's just not a lot of photos of those cars. And I actually met up with a gentleman that he worked in the York plant. And when they were closing the plant down, he had the wherewithal to go into the engineering office and reach into the filing cabinet and go, "Mine," and took it with him. And so I got legit, prints for those cars to make them. And I'm very fortunate to have people willing to kind of fess up that kind of information on that stuff. And the hot ingot transfer car, the 6-axle version, I knew they existed, but I was very fortunate there too. I had a gentleman from out east. I got a box in the mail one day, and in the bottom of this box was the prints for the car. I'm like, how did you get your hands on these? But I'm a kind of a nerd for Buckeye trucks. I don't know why, but so the 12-axle car is like this, but it's longer and it has Buckeyes under it. And I'm like, I have to make that car. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
It has 4 sets of Buckeyes, or
yeah. Yep.
Oh my good Lord.
It's probably a 300-ton car. I'd have to look on the print. It would tell me on the print, but it's probably a 3 or 320-ton car.
Wow. So how did you end up going from doing the steel mill stuff to getting into my personal favorite part of your stuff?
The grain stuff?
The grain elevator stuff.
So
because this grain elevator stuff is insane. It
is
so
takes, good.
It's going to take your modeling of any grain elevator or co-op or little side, like little team track loader, little podunk country load. It's going to take anybody's modeling to such a level. I can't stop talking about this stuff. It's so good.
So again, that was someone I watched on Facebook. There's a page called Model Grain Elevators, and I watched. I don't remember if it was on there or not, but someone I haven't ever met him in person, but I think we've become pretty good friends. This guy, Chad Thomas, who lives in Southern Illinois. I saw him making a gravity wagon, and I knew I had seen one of those around somewhere, but I saw him making, and he really likes to scratch build. But I said, I messaged him and I said, hey, I could make you those and it wouldn't take so long to make them. And he said, well, you'd probably sell those because I don't think anybody makes them, but but he likes to scratch build, so he's happy scratch building them. But so my brother-in-law was a farmer, and his brother, he had 3 brothers. His dad was a farmer. I shouldn't say that. My brother-in-law grew up on a farm. His dad was a farmer, and his brother kind of still knows where all the implements in the county are for sale and things like that. So when I was out there visiting, I asked him if he knew where one of these gravity wagons was, and his brother knew where the one was and said, you can go over here and tell these guys that you're okay and that you know me. And I did. And I sat with this Kill Brothers gravity wagon for about 3 hours one day with a measuring tape in my laptop, and I drew it up. It's funny too, because the gravity wagons, the wheel on them is apparently too big.
Really?
It's the size of the one that was on the one I measured. So I have a feeling the farmer maybe got older, or the gate was sticky, and he just put together a bigger wheel on it. But apparently the wheel is too big. I've had guys tell me that it's too big, but I guess I need to make it smaller. But that's a legit Kill Brothers gravity wagon. I have not looked up what model it is. I know they had different models, but this one is all over Western New York. I see him. Matter of fact, I see him out here all over the place.
Seems kind of like almost like a standard gravity wagon for
the
Midwest,
I don't think it's too much reinventing the wheel there. There's probably 2 or 3 companies that make these things, and they're all kind of the same thing. They're just got different names, decals on them.
Now I've spent a lot of growing up. I grew up on a farm, right? And those wheels came in different sizes, because we had one where we had a Kill Bros gravity box, and it was up on blocks. We took the wheels off of it, and we had cottonseed in it for mixing up in like a protein concentrate that we'd feed to the cows. And then we had another one that we actually would haul grain in from the field, and that one had like this tiny wheel to get the door up. But the one that we had in the shop for mixing up the protein feed, that had this huge, it must have been 4 feet across.
Yeah.
Big thing. And like you were just, you turned it and that thing, just went up so easy. So yeah, I kind of, I'll side with you on that one. That
I think it's probably how much weight is against the door would dictate how big the wheel would need to be, but
yeah,
they were, oh wow, I need to change that picture too. There's a support left on the wheel. I hate that stuff. You're like zooming in on all this stuff I didn't notice.
Sorry, Kevin.
Sometimes some of this older stuff, I catch that more now that I'm doing it full time, but 11 o'clock at night trying to take pictures to put up on the internet so you get your stuff out there. That bugs the hell out of me when I put something up
on, go above this. How's that?
when I put something up on the website, I think we could talk about that for a minute if you don't mind. When you buy 3D printed parts, I remember a couple of things. I remember reading someone on the Steel Modeling page that had bought a 3D printer, and he'd gotten a file from someone for free off the internet, and he put up the part that he made, and it was a really nice part. He bought a good printer, and he did a good job supporting it and everything and printed it out. But he went ad nauseum in this post about basically how 3D printers were ripping people off.
What?
Because the parts were so cheap to make and so easy to make. And I thought for the longest time about, giving a rebuttal to that, and I elected not to. But when you're buying a 3D printed part, there's a lot of labor that goes into getting the part in your hands, right? Some of it is intellectual labor, where you're doing research or you're thinking about how the part could be made. You really have to think of how many pieces this is going to be, how am I going to support it, where am I, from the get-go, much like with any other modeling project, where am I going to get the information from? Can I get prints? Am I going to have to drive somewhere and measure the thing up? How much time is it going to take me to draw it? How thin can I make the thing so that it looks prototype, but still is repeatable on the printer? So I'm not like losing lots of product and throwing it in the trash. There's a happy medium between making, I get the N scale guys all the time. Can you make that an N? Yeah, I could. If you can come to my house and pick it up and you're very delicate with it, I'll make one for you. If I have to put it in a package and ship it through USPS or take it to a show, no, because you're going to get home with a broken product.
Crushed.
Yeah.
But it's more than just buying the printer and having some kind of maker program. If you're going to get CAD, real CAD, Fusion 360 or AutoCAD or whatever, it costs money and it's time to learn how to use it. I'm still learning how to use it because they keep adding features. And, on the 3D printing side of it, I know you had Matt Herman on here and you saw his outfit. Anybody that's got a printer farm, it's not a whole lot different. You've got to have, that's not just a printer on your desktop.
Right.
And I feel like sometimes the 3D printing companies are a little bit shifty in how they market their stuff, because I don't think the general public knows that you don't just buy a 3D printer and it's like Star Trek, a part comes out of it and you can just use it.
Like a replicator.
Exactly.
You've got to have a place to have it. You've got to have venting, because even if you think you're not allergic to the resin, you can develop an allergy to the resin. And you need to vent. You need to vent it all, and you can't just vent it outside. You got to run it through a carbon filter, because it's not right to just vent the fumes outside.
Right.
It's organic vapor compounds, and you got to have a place to have your you got to have a place to have your printer. It's got to be dark. You can't have it where the sun is. It's not, you can, but it's not good to have it where the sun is. You got to have a place to store your resin. You got to have a wash station. You got to have a cure station. And if you're going to do that on any kind of, big operation, it's not, you got to dedicate part of your house to it. I mean, we live in a bi-level ranch, split level ranch, and I pretty much own the whole downstairs. This is my studio. The printer room is next door, and I have where we keep our freezers for our side of beef and stuff we buy. I actually use part of that too. And then on the other end of it, this box here is full of packing peanuts and tissue paper, baggies ad nauseum of different sizes to package parts. You got to have toppers for if you're going to go to a show. You got to have boxes to ship the stuff. I mean, it
costs money.
It all costs money. It all costs room in your house. And so when somebody wants to say, well, the 3D printer guy is ripping me off because I know that part can actually be made for 49 cents and he's selling it for, $3. Yeah. And what do you
your time is worth something,
What do you think Canon?
Right.
The guy at Canon is having tooling made, and that's the expensive part. The injection molding is pennies. But then he's got all the packaging he's got to pay for, advertising. Right. I mean, if the end user isn't willing to just accept that and have a nice thing to help them build their model, don't model. I mean, once you're on the manufacturing side of it, it's a lot of know-how.
Right.
Mike was commenting about his bucket elevator and it was easy to put it together. Yeah, right. It was easy to put it together. Well, I had to figure out how does this become a kit, right? I mean, I've been building models since I was 4, and the one thing, because I apparently have a noggin for engineering, which I passed on to Gunner, and I'm not a trained engineer. I'm a fabricator, but I've always paid attention to how things were put together. There's a lot of engineering in a model kit, whether it's a car or a airplane or a train car or whatever. And there is repetition in what they're doing. But if you're not paying attention to that and not thinking about that when you're developing a new product, how am I going to make this work for the guy on the other end so he's not MFing me the whole time he's putting it together?
Right.
Right.
It's true.
Right.
That's true.
Because I don't like that.
I will be perfectly honest with you. Oh my goodness. I'm like, Andy, I got to take a weekend. I'm cleaning my doggone desk off.
Yeah.
So here's
okay.
There is a beautiful elevator leg that I put together and then I let it sit freestyle, and it fell on the floor and broke. My fault.
Yeah.
My fault. I was so happy with the way this went together. And I'm sitting here going, oh, this is going to be cool. And now it's totally screwed up. And I'm buying some more parts because I learned my lesson. It was not a cheap lesson, but some of the things I learned when I put this together, I know I'm not going to repeat the next time. I know I did learn some things by putting this together, and in all likelihood, sometimes, and that's one beautiful thing about 3D printed parts, is that they are, for the most part, relatively inexpensive by comparison to having them. I mean, the choice is you don't get it at all. I mean, you don't have it, but you can go back and make a mistake and learn from it and make the next one better and the next one after that better. And you're still pretty close to not coming near the price of having one of the big companies go and buy one of their kits for $40.
Well, yeah, I mean, the bucket elevator is a good example, right? If you look at the Walthers or the Rick's bucket elevator, it's pretty, average. It's not got a lot of detail on it. It looks like the thing. It's supposed to be a representation, and it's a good representation. But they didn't spend a lot of money on that die because those dies are expensive, right? The mold for making the part. Whereas in 3D printing, you can have a lot more detail because you are working in a different medium and it's a smaller manufacturing process. And the big thing is, I can put one of those bucket elevators together in my sleep because I've built a bunch of them. But for it, you need to find the happy medium for the guy that's the end user that's going to build one or two of those. You want him to have a very good experience and have it very easy to put together, and it has to be very robust. I don't know if you use the little styrene slugs that I suggested using and to line those up.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The look on his face says no.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I did and I didn't. Okay.
So
I did and I didn't. I have styrene in here, but I didn't use a slug. Inside of this is one full strip.
Oh yeah, you can do that, but you only really need to cut little.
Yeah. No.
Materials management, man.
Yeah. No. Not. I thought I was. Pardon my French, but I thought I was.
The coup de grace.
Yeah, no, not the coup de grace. No, I
Not
thought
the
I
coup
was.
de grace.
I thought I was saving myself some time and making it more sturdy by doing it that way. And I was wrong. Really. I was wrong.
You were wrong. I'll let you know you were wrong.
I was wrong.
And partially, I thought about that originally, right? But the process in 1/64 scale, it's easier to do what you did, right? But in HO, because it's a much smaller hole, I had to have tighter tolerances, and I couldn't reliably have it slide all the way through each one, right? And then I thought, well, wait a minute, I don't really need that. And what you guys don't know about me is I'm of Scottish heritage, and you guys know how, just to let you know how much of a miser Scottish people are. There's a joke. You know how copper wire was invented?
Oh,
it was two Scotsmen fighting over a penny.
That's funny because my mother's Scottish. She's born in Edinburgh, and she always would tell me that the Grand Canyon was formed because a Scotsman dropped a penny down a gopher hole.
Yeah, right. right. It's true. Yeah. That's probably also true. But but anyway, I realized. I realized that you didn't need to do that. You could use just a little slug, and actually the only reason I use the slug at all is because it helps the guy sitting at home putting it together. It helps them to line it up and have a much nicer looking model when they're done, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention, when you buy a 3D printed part, my camera's not going to focus. I do 3D, Matt and me and Bernard up at Mini Prints. We, I'll give Matt a plug too. I don't think I mentioned his company, the 3D Central. We all do, and I think this could be said of all the 3D printers, the guys I don't know. We all do our level best to keep the contact points between the supports and the part at a bare minimum, and still give you a really nice part that you don't have to spend forever cleaning up, right? But the one thing I've noticed is that I'll sell things to people and they'll send me pictures of the parts and they have done like no cleanup. And I don't know if it's a perception. I think this is what it is. I think the perception is that you're getting a part that's just like a plastic part that's come out of a die. It's injection molded, right? And you're going to have all the smooth edges, and you're only going to have one or two places where the sprue touched the part that you're going to have to clean up. And unfortunately, that's a myth. That's not true with 3D printed parts. I print this part in this orientation. I thought about doing it this way, but I don't want somebody having to clean up these little stays. I'd rather have those be smooth, because when it's in, I think about that stuff, and I think a lot of other guys too. You try to put the supports on the area of the part rather, that is going to be least seen, right? And so I put all the supports down here on the bottom, but I've got this nice straight edge here, and although this is down inside the car, you can still see it a little bit. So when you clean this up, you're going to have to take a sanding stick. This is the original sanding stick, by the way.
The emery board.
And you're going to have to go over the part. Now, you don't have to work it to like change the shape of the part. Me doing that, just a few passes over here, and they're gone, right? And,
Right.
and I'm in error because of some of the pieces that you saw on my website. Because it was 11 o'clock at night and I was trying to get them on the website, you could see there were still tits, what's commonly guys let's call tits. You could still see the little tit marks where the contact touched the part, and I didn't clean those off. I failed to do that. Now all the ones that you showed, I'm going to now go back and I'm going to clean all that stuff up.
Sorry.
And and it's a pride thing, right? Pride and progress. I want people to see what the part can be. But I also try to really limit the amount of cleanup. But there is no 3D part from Caslo Shops or Matt Herman at 3D Central or any company that sells you a 3D part, unless they've got like $150,000 rapid prototyping machine. If they're using Elegoo or Anycubic or something like that to make their parts with, you're going to have support points. They're going to have to be trimmed off, and your model can be so much nicer looking if you just take the time. I mean, think about a resin kit, the older resin kit. When you got those, like from, Stephen Finero, the Finero and Camerlengo.
There you go.
They have a little bit of flash on them, and guys don't have a problem cleaning that up. They know they have to clean that off of there to make his cars are beautiful.
Yeah.
Once you get them out, and he does his level best to have a minimal amount of cleanup on his product, but you do have cleanup. And so do 3D printers. My parts, I make them as perfect as I can. I make them with as few contact points as I can in an orientation where the part is down so that you're not seeing, your eyeball is not going to pick up on that stuff, but there's still cleanup. And it doesn't take a long time. It's not like cleaning up a big plastic part. The resin, I use jeweler's files. I have these I have these jeweler's files. I have 0, 4, and 6 grit that I got. I got these from McMaster Car, but you can get them from almost anywhere. And I like using those. I have these things called Riffler files. I sell these on my website.
Really?
They come in a package. So the file is on this side. It's on the curved side.
Yeah.
You can clean up a round part simply by doing little circles with it and rotating the part and get all the little tits off of there.
Huh. Interesting.
The set that I sell, and you don't have to buy them from me, but I sell this kit.
That's awesome.
It's got a flat version in here, and it's got a bunch of different curve shapes. Called Riffler files. But if you have that stuff in your arsenal, and then your mom's emery boards that you used to steal from her, and then she'd want to know where they were. If you have that stuff, you could take this rotor and clean it up in about a minute and be ready to go. And it makes such a much nicer looking model when you take the time to just clean it up. It's just clean it up really quick. Take some alcohol on a pad, or go with a very, very soft bristle like toothbrush. I buy cheapy soft toothbrushes at like Amazon. You can get like 12 of them for $4 or something. And some dish soap. If you do that, if you do wash the part, don't use like crazy hot water, because it will manipulate the resin.
I was going to ask you about that.
So really good tips.
Can that work in reverse though? Can you use warm water to straighten a part that may have warped? Because
so the thing that people need to know about when you're ordering 3D parts, especially something that's got hand railings on it, or it's got a really thin cross section like these ribs, like those. So the thing that you don't use warm water. You can use heat, like from a space heater, and you have to be very careful, right? You have to be very careful. You don't get the part like red hot, but you don't want to have too little heat. If anybody's ever worked with plastic or even metal, when you're heating it, there's a part where you really feel like you have to use a lot of force to manipulate it, and there's a part where it goes very easily, but you're still using force. It's not like liquid, but you can feel it. It'll just, the heat will be just right, and the part will just move with very little effort, right? And so what I do when I have to straighten a part is the majority of like hand railings and things, they want to be back in the position that they were printed in, right? So sometimes what I usually recommend is the first thing you can do, and I say a space heater because you don't have to hold on to the thing. It's not a hair dryer, right? And usually space heaters don't have very forceful air flowing through them, right? The point of plasticity. I really like that. Engineer me a tea. That's fantastic.
Engineer me a tea.
That should be on a t-shirt. Like I feel like that guy's British. So if you have a space heater, you don't have a very forceful wind coming through it. And because you're not holding on to it, you can really control where the part is. And if you like, I have a tower space, I keep pointing down here because I have a tower space heater. If you have a tower space heater at the very top of the grill, it's not very hot, but in the middle, it's like crazy hot, right? So you can kind of run the part up and down there. And the first thing with like hand railings that I tell people is when you watch the hand railing as you're heating it up, it will move visually. And when it starts to move, take it away from the heat and set it down and just let it set. Because there's a chance that it will return to its original position where it was printed all by itself as it cools, right? If it doesn't do that on your first go, then you can get it warm to where it's the point of plasticity again, and just take a straight edge, maybe the back of an emery board to hold it straight, right?
Yeah.
The heat and straighten it up. But you've got to hold it where you want it to be
until it cools.
Until it cools, and then you can take your thing. Because I've had guys they'll message me. I do the very best I can. Everybody asks me for hand railings, and I have to tell you, I was against hand railings for the longest time because I couldn't figure out how to ship them and not have them break. Right? Because UPS is going to destroy your stuff. FedEx isn't much better. The best one I found, unbelievably, was the Postal Service.
The Postal Service.
They seem to be the least gorilla-like when they're tossing boxes around.
Mongo carry package.
Yeah, right. Got the yes and the no on the back of the ox.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
I just went and saw that movie in the theater because it was the 50th anniversary of that movie. They had
Blazing
it in the
Saddles.
theater. Yeah. Anyway, so I had to figure out how to ship it. And like Mike, when you got your dryer there, you see there's foam taped in between on the ends.
Yes.
And I haven't had the top railings really get messed up, or anybody's complained about the top ones, but the ones on the platforms kept getting messed up. So I came up with the foam. I do have a way that I could protect those. I have, so on my, and I didn't, when I did this, I didn't raise the price. I want everybody to know I really kind of try to keep my price down as much as I can because I want people to have fun modeling. And, you freaking can't take your wife to the restaurant anymore with drinks and not have it be a hundo.
Right.
Yeah, easily.
And when, box cars are freaking $60, I'm trying to keep the modeling end of it low. I do the best I can. So I have those 40-ton grain loaders. Right.
Yeah.
And when you buy one of those, it comes with this shipping cap that I 3D print out of PLA on my big printer. Right. And this goes down over the top of it. And it's to protect the side railings on the walkway and the railing. There's a square up in here that goes down. And this actually protects the railings on the top of the loader too, because I shipped a couple of those and they got to the guys and the railings were crushed. And so I would make another one and send it to the guy, and the railings were crushed. And I'm like, all right, we got to figure this out because I can't only have this be available at a show.
What was that for there, Kevin?
The 40-ton surge loader,
Oh, okay.
the square one.
Yeah,
It's like a
that's the
modern
one.
surge loader.
Yeah.
So actually, I call these shipping caps. I have a shipping cap for the top of the harvest doors too, because oh my God, USPS was just, they were just gorillas with the harvest doors. And that the blowpipe that's on the top of the harvest door, I wanted it to be, yeah. So that
Oh, look at that.
yeah. So the this goes over the top. Of course, the cage ladder's not there. Well, that one's got crazy bad top railings on it. I'm gonna have to get rid of that one too. Thanks, Mike. You're just like making me look like a jerk here. I'm telling people how nice my stuff is.
That's what we do here at the second section. We bring you in, and then we bait you in with the nice personality, and then we rip you apart right on the show.
S scale ever again.
I think
Well,
I would
be
prank
fair,
him,
I can-
Kevin, the next
to be
time he buys
fair-
something from you.
To be fair, that one, I guarantee that was like an 11 o'clock at night one. And I hadn't, I was sleepy and I didn't notice that. So I'll be building another one of those to put up.
I feel like such a
That's cool.
Truth be told, it's a really nice model when you get it. Anyway, so I have a shipping cap for the
Awesome.
harvest doors too, because I didn't want the top of the blowpipe on the top of the harvest door. I didn't want it to be, not prototype like the real ones. And they just
Right.
kept destroying those things. So I have a shipping cap that goes on top of the harvest door now, and it actually pins it in the box so it can't move.
Yeah.
that
bring
looks,
up
Packaging
one of-
engineering. I mean,
this looks very
Go ahead, Mike.
familiar. Well, this looks really similar to the one that is out in Luxembourg, Wisconsin.
It could be.
I've spotted this for years.
That's a little one. It's a 40-ton. I'm going to make a big Warrior. There's a brand called Warrior. I'm going to make a Warrior one that I think is like a 100-tonner.
It's do you sell just the
base? No,
the base alone?
I guess I could, but I don't.
That's awesome.
So if you go to the harvest doors,
All right, we'll go
they're under silos, I think. If you go down to this, right there.
silos.
these things are so cool.
Oh,
Yeah, there's
these
the
three right
harvest.
here.
Yes. They're
There's a
so
painted one.
beautiful.
But you see how tiny the blowpipe is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they just kept breaking those things like crazy. So I have a shipping cap that goes over that whole top, and it's supported now. And I haven't had anybody say that their harvest door got there and it was junk.
Look at that.
That
is absolutely gorgeous.
This is another
Yeah.
fun bit of research, right? And I assumed, because I'm a bicentennial nerd, right? I was 6 years old
Yeah.
at the bicentennial. I got to go to Disney World with my dad, on July 4th. And I assumed that they probably had a bicentennial sheet, because these harvest stores are made like a regular elevator or a regular bin, right? So they're in sections. Each ring is a section, and they call it a sheet, right? So there's a sheet with the flag and there's a sheet with the logo. And I assume that they probably had a bicentennial logo, and they did, but it wasn't this flag. I swagged that. It's a total foobie. It's actually a round, like Spirit of 76 logo. And again, there's nerds for everything. There's a Facebook page for harvester nerds.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
And so I met this guy. This guy told me, I posted those up on the grain modeling page. And this guy got a hold of me and he said, well, that's actually the wrong sheet. They didn't look like that. And there's like harvester collectors rather, and they collect like memorabilia from Harvest A.O. Smith. And and he sent me a photo. I have to get Matt Wilkie at Circus City Decals does all my decals. I have to get Matt to do the actual bicentennial logo for me. But I'm going to offer the bicentennial harvest door, but it'll have the correct sheet in it, the round logo. And actually, this would be a good place to, I don't know if your listeners, if anybody's bought a bicentennial harvester from me, but if you have, you can email me and I'll send you the correct decal when I get them in
There you go.
for free. I'm not going to charge people for that. It's my screw up. So, I'm happy to send them one in the mail.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. I mean, and then I was looking at the stave or the stavi silos.
Stave, concrete stave
Yeah,
silos. Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent a significant amount of time in a stave silo. The farm that I, worked on, we used to have to climb up the unloader side and then pull out the doors.
Yeah.
So that way the silage could come down. So that was, you want to talk about a terrible job climbing up the the silo doors and then pulling them out. And oh, it was just a disaster. Covered in hay and corn. Blech.
Yep. Yeah. You didn't
But
have
yeah,
one of the
I
ones
get-
you didn't have one of the ones with the auger built into the foundation. No.
We had the unloader was it sat on the top, and
Yeah.
it blew the silo or the silage down the one side
Down
of
the
it.
chute. Yeah. Down the chute.
Yeah, down the chute. Yeah, and so I had to climb up there, and oh man, that was a bad time. And then there was pigeons in there all the time, and there was shit all over the ladder. It's just
Yeah.
then you
We've
come
all had
covered
those
in
jobs.
silage. Yeah. PTSD. I had a little bit of I've been inside of one of them things. And then I saw your augers for your bins and stuff, and I'm going, oh my God, I've spent so much time in a bin shoveling soybeans. It's just it's unreal. So
yeah, I got to
yeah.
shovel grain dust at a feed mill from the dust pit under the mill. I was the old man on the totem pole, so I had a bandana on my face, and I'd go down there and they'd give you a grain shovel, and I'll tell you, anybody that's ever shoveled wet concrete or sand, that's how heavy grain dust is. You would think, oh, it's not that heavy, but it is. It's like shoveling dry cement. It's
it's just like
heavy.
dry cement.
Oh yeah, I was so tired. I was so tired when I got done that day.
Yeah, dairy tombstones.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Yep. Yeah. Well
Awesome.
done, Randy. No, that's super cool, Kevin. That's so you've obviously you're going to be at a couple RPMs coming up here. The Naperville one you're going to be going to.
Yeah, I'll be at the Naperville RPM in next month in a few weeks.
Okay.
I'm glad they brought that back. I hope at some point we can get a little bigger venue. It's not that the rooms aren't big enough. It's the configuration. It's a little bit.
It's kind of awkward.
It's a little awkward. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice venue. It's a beautiful building and all, but it just seems a little bit
disjointed,
awkward.
right?
But I get that he's trying to bring it back and he had to find a venue for it, and typically RPMs can be at a hotel or I think St. Louis is probably the odd man out, being at a real convention center that's but it's like a legit, doesn't have a hotel attached to it, convention center. Although I know they're not going to move, but that could be in a bigger venue too. That is just getting to be massive.
Keeps growing.
Yeah,
those guys are so hard workers down there. Lonnie Bathurst is just I'm probably butchering his last name, but Lonnie does such a fantastic job, and the rest of the crew down there. That is such an awesome show, and they're very fortunate to be kind of in the middle of the country. So kind of anybody could. I've met people from Washington, and there was a guy from New Zealand came up to me at that show last year.
Really?
Summer. I mean, yeah, I was like blown away. He came from New Zealand. That's a long trip too, boy. To come. I'm sure he didn't come just for that, but I'm sure he planned his trip around it.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. And then you're going to be at Amherst then again this year. Is that right?
I will. Yeah,
and
I think
coming year 2025.
I think I'll be in the Mallory building again, but I'm not positive. I was just talking to John Sacerdoti earlier today, who's also, those guys are crazy hard workers, and he is such a nice person. I can't say enough about the people that put that show on, and John is such a good guy. But I think he mentioned something about Athern was moving or not coming back or something like that. Maybe he'd put me where Athern was. I'm not sure where Athern was. I didn't really get a chance to walk around. So I think he said they're moving. Maybe they're moving to a different part of the show. I don't
Gossip
know.
on the second section.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, had a little train talk.
I think
yeah,
he said I think he said they're moving, so I think they're being put in a different, maybe a better part of the show. I don't know. I didn't get to really walk around the show at all, because
yeah, kind of
I'm the lone gun at my booth. So
you're locked down at your booth all day, so you don't even get a restroom break or a bio break. Huh? You just have to.
I have some friends that come to the show, and actually the show, if you, I believe I remember them telling me last year, you could call over to the show office and say, "Hey, I'm by myself. Can you send somebody over?" And they would send one of the show people over just to sit at your booth. And obviously not
cool.
meant for you, but they would give you a break. I did like where my booth was last year because I was right near, the restroom was like just around the corner, and there was a food vendor right there too. So they always say at a show, you should always try to be near the food, the bathroom, or the entrance, because that's where everybody is. So, it was a good location. I liked it. It was a little chilly, but I guess all the buildings are like that. So
yeah, that's the place, that's the location, right? That's where you want to be. So you're going to be out and about, and then you also are on Facebook. You talked about social media too, right? So you have a Facebook page as well. I see the Steel Mill Modelers Supply. Do you have ones for the other?
Yeah, there's one for Southern Tier Grain, and there's one for Scale Modeling by Kevin Tully.
Okay.
And the other two, they get updated a little more than the Scale Modeling page does, but I try to keep the appropriate item. I don't want to, on Steel Mill Modeling, I don't want to be putting up some grain elevator that I just built for somebody. And I wanted to have a place to kind of showcase my work that I do for people, because I build steel mill structures. I'm building one for a guy over in Indiana in South Bend. I've got some big grain elevator stuff that I'm doing a feed mill right now for Mark Nolan's ICG layout down in Tennessee.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, he's got me. I think we're up to 7 elevators he's got me building.
What?
And then I do freight car loads too. I've got a gentleman that wants me to do. I did this hydrogen vessel years ago on a depressed center car, and I've never had it up for sale because it's a really delicate part. I think I could probably sell it at a show, but I don't think I'd want to ship it.
Sure.
But I had a guy ask me if I would build him one, and I said sure. So I've actually thought about doing that car in S. I think that, or O scale, would be cool because it would be gigantic. But
so if you
not that you don't have. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna kind of just to tag on here. So with the custom modeling that you do, is that's also on your website as well to essentially request
how to get a hold of me
services. Okay, cool. Because that's a really important note. You're not just known for the actual 3D prints and the products, but you also help out with some of the modeling as well, and those services are for hire.
Yeah,
well.
I can do that. I actually had a guy ask me, and I don't know whether it's because he was elderly or maybe he's just not into building models, but he asked me about getting one of the Alice Chalmers cars finished, and I wouldn't have a problem doing that. The new Buckeye trucks that I just released in 1/64 scale, I offer those painted, and actually everybody that ordered them from me so far has all purchased them painted.
Nice,
because it's just easy to do. I mean, I'm actually going to do a little business plug, if you guys don't mind, for something I'm coming out with.
No, this is
I'm listening to Mike on the Around the Layout podcast over on Ray's podcast, talk about how the S scale stuff was kind of a chicken and the egg thing. And I totally get that. I made the decision to put the design work into doing S scale when I realized there weren't any 36-inch wheel trucks, whether it be a 100-ton truck or a Buckeye or whatever. And I'm a Buckeye nerd, so I made the decision to do those wheel sets and trucks in 1/64th. And it's funny because Ben Truesdale commented that he had just invested in getting wheel sets made too. And I don't know whether Ben, I don't know him personally. I know him from email and stuff. He seems like a super guy. And his cars are beautiful. But he seemed a little off about how I launched 36-inch wheels too in S scale. And I commented back to him like, hey, that's just good, because the one thing I remember Mike saying and some of the other guys for 164th modelers is that, these companies come out with something really cool that everybody needs. And then the gentleman gets old and dies, or he sells the company off, or he loses interest, and now everybody's out. They just don't have that item anymore. And if Ben's going to sell 36-inch wheels, and I'm going to sell 36-inch wheels, and State Tool and Die is going to sell 36-inch wheels, guess what? If one of us disappears, or we get out of the business because we've had enough, or we get hit by a bus tomorrow or whatever, you guys aren't out. So I think that's beneficial to have. And it actually speaks. I think that says a lot that you got 3 different places that have decided to make 36-inch wheels and do some trucks. I wonder if that isn't that we all just had the same idea at the same time, or that, you could say the universe or God or whatever is saying, hey, it's time for the 164th guys to have a little gravy too. And, State Tool and Die wanted to do their bottle car in 164 scale. And, I help out with that stuff for him. And when I did the trucks for it, I said, well, I'll do the trucks. Well, now I've got all these cars that I produce, and I happen to have the trucks for them. So I might as well do those cars in that scale. And I don't know, Mike, is there some manufacturers doing like heavy duty flat cars or depressed center cars in S?
I
know
years ago there was a company, BTS, did I want to say it was either a 100-ton or a 70-ton depressed center flat car, but it was like a resin type of car.
Sure.
And I mean, it was a nice kit. But for the most part, I don't think there's a lot of depressed center flat cars out there, or heavy duty equipment like that out there. It's something that would be cool to see and cool to have.
I don't know if I don't know if there's a big market for it, but because I'm manufacturing to order on some of this stuff, it really doesn't cost me more than some time to, do my 300-ton flat car in S.
Right.
And, what are you doing up? Oh, you're waiting for me? Oh, we're almost done, buddy. I'll come up and say goodnight to you. Okay.
I'm waiting for you.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, Gunner.
I'll be up in a few minutes, bud. Okay.
All right.
That's our cue.
Good night.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a market for it, but I'm happy to make the stuff in S. And if somebody buys it, I can print one out. And if they don't buy it, well, I'm not really out a whole lot. And if it helps people have something cool on their layout, it makes me happy. So
yeah, I've always heard it, or I heard it talked about as and this is one of my favorite sayings, the self-licking popsicle, so to speak, because everybody complains about there never being enough. There's not enough product in 164, but yet in order to create that product, you have to have the demand. So because there's no demand, there isn't the product. So it's in a vicious cycle. Yeah, but that's where I think the 3D printing is going to come in.
Yeah,
really, really handy.
The funny thing about that is right after Amherst last year on one of the S scale Facebook pages, there was this guy on there. I don't remember his name, and I'm sure he's a very nice person, but he was on there lamenting about how, well, once again, Amherst has come and gone, and Athearn and Scale Trains and everybody else had all this new product out there in N and HO, but nothing in S. And it was a pretty long rant, and I got on there and I said, well, I have plenty of stuff in S because guys have asked me for it, but no one's buying it.
Right.
So, it doesn't really cost me anything other than time to make something, enlarge something to S. I mean, I have to change some things if it's got a piece of tubing attached to it, like if it's made for evergreen or plastic tubing or whatever. So I have to change some dimensions on things or whatever, or make the base. I do that 40-ton loader in S now. So I had to actually, this guy asked me for the 40-ton loader and the 140 ton Clayton and Lambert loader in S, and I did all the work. I went and bought S scale track. I found out what kind of track you guys use and made the base fit the track and everything. And I sent him the links, and he's never bought it.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. And then he asked me for a third part. I'm like, well, after you've purchased the first two you asked for, I'll be happy to. I was kind of
Show
waiting
me
for
the
you
money.
to buy these other parts, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think with that stuff, it has to be a guy modeling that scene. So I kind of get that.
Right.
And I'm happy to have it in my catalog. I have a really good customer that buys for me in S all the time, and he ordered one of the loaders, and I'm happy to have been able to supply it to him. I think the rolling stock will probably do a little better.
Yeah.
But if you've got a listener that's in O or in 164th, and they want something that I don't list, I always tell people, even in N, if you see something on my site and it says only HO, that's because no one's ever asked me for it, because it's not a matter of putting it through the slicer and telling it I want it to be bigger. There are things you have to change. There might be a manufacturing or how the part goes together or something. It took me a while to figure out how to do the bucket elevators in N, but I have them in N now. I figured it out. It just takes me a while sometimes to suss out how the kit would go together. But if somebody sees something and it's not in their scale and they would really like to have it in their scale, all they have to do is send me an email or a message on Facebook and say, hey, would you be able to make this in my scale? And I'm happy to entertain it.
Well, on that note, I have something, and I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you this photo. It's based off of part of our conversation.
A little now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you'll like this. All right. I promise.
Yeah,
You'll like it. You'll like
it.
it.
And then I gotta go.
Yes.
I got a little boy waiting on me.
Yes, you do. Okay.
Okay. What do you got? Hit me. Oh,
here we go.
Okay. All right.
Look at the flag
decal?
on the top. Look at the flag on the top.
The decal? You want the decal?
No. You can actually I'm going to send this to you so you can go and offer this with your Stalby silo, because this is a really short stave. Yeah. So this is a really short one.
Oh, I could make shorter ones. I don't have a problem.
But then, I mean, this is a really I took this photo probably 12
Looks
years
like a 20
ago.
footer. It's probably a 20 footer.
I randomly ran across this silo turning around to try to catch a train, and I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah,
and
that's great.
And so I'm like, okay, because we were talking about the bicentennial stuff, and I'm like, okay, I got a photo for him.
They actually did have. I only made the 60 footer because it's a common size. You can actually build a stave silo any height you want.
Is that what this is? Is this a stave silo?
Yeah. So those are it's like Lego. It's almost literally like Lego. A stave is 16 inches wide and 30 inches tall.
Oh,
and
wow.
they interlock. There's no cement in that silo. You could actually go disassemble that silo and move it to your house.
Yeah, if you pulled all the bands off of it, which is dangerous. Yeah, all those bands. Yeah, you could move it.
It would just come apart.
I just thought the whole decal and everything would really fit what you're doing, and it'd be something else you could offer. You could, I'll send this to you, and I'll send a little note saying you got permission to do whatever you need to make that decal out of this photo, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So you're perfectly good. So, because I just thought it was really cool.
They actually had harvestors that were really short too. I've seen a harvestor that was only like 5 rings tall. And I made the common sizes. If someone wanted, I actually have a stave silo under construction that I haven't released yet. It's got the little they got like a little circular platform that raises up as it inside on a pole that they raise up as they're building the silo. But I have that. I just haven't released it yet. And I could make a shorter, if some of your viewers want a shorter size stave silo or a harvestor, I'm happy to make it. Just let me know what height you're interested in, and I can make something other than 60 footer. But so I better get going. He should have been in bed like an hour and a half ago.
Kevin, thanks so much. We'll let you off the hook here for joining us this evening. We do have a couple of admin bits, but again, you're welcome back anytime if you want to talk about new products or
anytime you want me on.
Yeah. So
and we will
have a good night.
In touch.
I will say real quick, one thing I wanted to get in. I've had a bunch of people in 164th and O scale ask for the Alice Chalmers car. the
Yeah.
401, the 400 car, and so I'll be releasing the Alice Chalmers car in 164th next month, and O scale should be December, and then I'll have
That's
them.
awesome.
I should have some of those at Amherst. I don't want to bring too much S&O at Amherst, but
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
and I'll have all the other cars on the website. All the other rolling stock will be available in S and O scale soon. So
All right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
and the
very
loads.
cool.
So
Kevin, we're going to let you off the hook, but I think we're going to keep the show going here just for a little bit because I do have a couple announcements that we do need to make. So, Kevin, if you need to
All right.
ship off, I understand. We do certainly appreciate you coming on and sharing everything. Section crew, sit tight. We got a couple of things that we got to talk about here before we wrap up for tonight. So, have a good night. Say good night to Gunner for us,
Thanks.
and
I
we'll
will.
see you next time, Kevin.
we'll
Bye.
see you,
Kevin.
All right. So I just want to thank Kevin again. That was fantastic. Just to have him
Wow.
on the show. Wasn't that so
Wow.
cool? It was incredible. And
I felt like such a turd though. Cradle, every picture
why?
because every picture I pull
Oh,
up, I'm sitting here going, oh no.
uh,
I'm like,
so I got a little segue here.
oh
okay.
boy. Okay.
So what would go better than something coming off of the roller mill that after you bought your products from Steel Mill Supply or Steel Modelers Supply, right?
Uh-huh.
Remember our friends over at Home Shops?
Yes.
Yeah. Guess what's here?
Yeah.
The
I
coil
just saw that.
cars. Isn't that awesome? So
That's
the Ohio Southern and V&O coil cars are here and talking about those heavy
Yep.
loads, right? We have the pressed center flats as well from Home Shops. So we're not sponsored by Home Shops by any stretch of the imagination, but I figured, holy cow, wouldn't it just be awesome, to pair these two together tonight? So the steel mill modelers supply, and then obviously as you build your steel mill up, you got to have the coil cars. You should grab a couple of these V&O coil cars. I might just get a couple just to have in the Ohio Southern. I mean, they're just super sharp looking cars.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
So yeah, I did want to mention that tonight from Chris over at Home Shops. Thanks again for putting these out and together. My credit card is it's gonna be barking tonight. I think I'm gonna have to get on there and get
Do
a.
those come with coil loads in them?
Let's take a look. I think we should take a deep
let's dive a little
deeper
deeper
dive
into
here.
that because that.
So if we look at it here, looks like these cars do come with the coils. So let's just see the Ohio Southern, the Intermountain metal coil loads for extra weight. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, and these are the Intermountain 100-ton Evans steel cars. So
you see them everywhere.
You do. They're still in service
Green
today,
Bay
right?
every day.
Yep. So you can see here the new mark on there is 68. So 68 until today.
Yep.
You can still run them, and boy, these things would look really good weathered up.
Oh yeah,
real nice. So, anyways, I did want to give our friends over at Home Shops a quick plug this evening, and then we do have to thank Justin again over at our favorite hobby shop there, Engine House Services in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So tonight's show, I think I had the banner running pretty much all show, but 7% off of your total cart tonight. For viewers that turned in using the code 3D print. I'll bring that back up here just so you guys can grab that before we check out for this evening. And again, we're not taking any money from Justin and the crew at Engine House. This is all out of the goodness of his heart and what he's doing to give back to the section crew. So this is exclusive offer just for you guys tonight. Again, 7% off, and then $100 if you have an order over $100, that's free shipping, and the discount code is 3D print. So, all right, we do have to do a little postmortem here, Mike, because this was a super fun show, wasn't it?
It was a lot of fun. I mean,
it was.
Doing some 3D printing on my own and stuff like that, I really I really do understand what goes into what he was talking about, and I get that. And it's well, now I'm going to be buying a carbon filter because that's like I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, oops,
your VOCs are escaping there.
Yeah, that's like the one thing I don't have on my vent, and I'm like, oh well,
yeah, right.
So, but I mean, yeah, I tell you what, these guys that are doing this stuff, not just Kevin, but some of these other 3D print places are coming out with some things that the quality of them just keeps getting better and better and better. And a part of that is a testament, a shout out to the printer manufacturers themselves, because the printers, like I have a Anycubic 6K Photon 6K, and it's awesome. It does great.
Yeah.
I just need to learn how to better utilize it and to utilize it properly. And that's where I'm at with my stuff. But these guys have got such good quality stuff coming out, and it's endless. It's like an endless supply. Yeah. And like Kevin was saying at the end, it doesn't cost much more than a few, mouse clicks and a handful of time to enlarge or do things, or if he's going to do a project from scratch, there he's got his time designing it. But if he puts it out there, after that, it doesn't really cost him much to have it on the internet.
It's like the golden goose, right? It keeps laying once you feed the goose and it grows up and it starts laying the eggs, right?
Right. And eventually somebody's going to want that part for something, and you'll have it, and it's, and you do learn, and things like this can happen. And
right.
It's, and it's that was just stupid what I did with that. That was so dumb.
I'll never forget when you messaged me. I thought someone in your family had died. Honest to God, when like I thought that was it, and oh my God. And then I'm like, oh, the grain elevator. And I'm like, yeah, that's like a family member,
Yeah.
So,
I'm sitting here going, oh my God. I had just spent, I don't know how long I spent putting that together. And I'm like, oh my God. And it fell on, it was so, because I'm like, I'm going to paint this. This is going to be cool. This is it's on the floor. I'm like, shit.
We should have instead of doing like what's on the workbench, we should have what's hit the floor.
That's a good idea. Here's the cage.
I think
here's what's left of the cage.
The cage that's mangled pretty bad. So
but
I think
that does.
Yeah, I think instead of the what's on your workbench, we'll have to pull out the fail army and see what's hit the floor, because
that might be the end of the year type of thing to do.
It could be an end of the year. Yeah, let's remember the models that we've lost this year.
Yeah, let's remember. Yeah, just like they do on the Emmys,
Yeah, just like on the Oscars, right? These were the models we lost this year. So, yep. So there you go. So, anyways, Mike, I thought it was a great show. And 3D print fails also. I think that's a good call, Mike. We'll have to do. We've had some Jim dandies that have just not gone right. So,
hey, I want to throw a little shout quick here to Mike.
Yes.
Later.
Yes.
If you're in the, oh God, I'm going to get this wrong, Mike. I apologize already. The Southeast Wisconsin Modelers Retreat is this weekend. I believe it's Saturday. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's down in Kenosha, somewhere down in that neck of the woods. So if you have an opportunity, look up the Southeast Wisconsin Modelers Retreat. Go down there. It's kind of a new old event. It's kind of a rebirth of the event, and so if you get it,
yes, it's at. Yep. So it's at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Kenosha, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you get an opportunity down to get down to Kenosha, head down there. It's going to be a cool time. I remember from years past when we went down there to this event, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
So, and I don't doubt that this is going to be the exact same situation.
So it's
A lot of
free.
good friends show up down there, and a lot of good modeling, and so
Yeah. And so Michael, he'll cross post it over on Facebook for us. Mike,
yep.
I appreciate you helping us out, but that's from 9 to 3 on Saturday, right? Yeah. And at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So always a good time, and Mike puts on a pretty good show. So
Yeah.
be sure to, if you're in the area, stop by and tell them that the folks at Second Section sent you. Ooh, that was a tongue twister.
Wow.
So
you okay there?
no, I'm not. I had a little brain fade there, that's for sure. So any other news or notes this evening, Mike?
No, not that I know of. We're getting into silly season. There's all sorts of small shows popping up all over the place.
Yep.
Get a hold of any one of your local NMRA divisions. There's all sorts of different things coming up. There's the fall meet. The fall meet is October
Winnebago
5th
Land
for the Winnebago
division.
Land.
Yep.
I don't know when Badgerland is going to be doing their fall stuff. I'm not sure if they do a fall thing, but just start looking up your NMRA stuff. And there's all sorts. I mean, we have Train Fest coming up. Train Fest is only 8 weeks away,
4 or 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks away, 6 weeks,
something,
maybe 7 weeks.
something
Yeah,
like
8
that.
weeks. You're right.
So
yeah.
I mean, it's not that far away. There's all sorts of other events coming up, and things just pop up every weekend. I know that Twin Cities has an RPM coming up on November 2nd. That's going to be coming up soon. So look up our boys, Thomas Gazier and the boys over in the Twin Cities to take a look at that. And man, the calendar is just abound with all sorts of, and get out and take pictures of trains.
Yeah, do that.
Getting to be pretty time out there with the colors changing and stuff like that.
There you go.
Some time for some awesome
still
photography.
feels like summer around by us, but
I know it can be 50 degrees anytime now.
Yeah, good deal, Mike. So and then we got a full slate of guests coming on the show here.
Yep.
Coming up through fall and winter season. So I think the next show we have is going to be if I look at the calendar, that's going to be October 10th. And we're going to have Lauren James on from Otter Valley Railroad. We're going to be talking about his latest line of cars that he's bringing out, the loads that go in those cars. So you may have seen one of the garbage guns going around the old Mascoutin Valley this evening. And then also going to be talking about those CN flat cars, those bulkhead flat cars with the pipe loads. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about hobby shops and how do you do a hobby shop in this day and age, right? So Lauren's going to graciously accepted to come on the show and talk about that. So again, if you're out there listening tonight and you want to, I guess, keep the party rolling, we have a great community of listeners, viewers over at the Second Section Podcast Facebook group. I think we're almost up to like maybe 1,400 folks in there now, and it's been growing steadily. A lot of great model railroad content there. People come in, ask questions, they get answers, and it's just modelers helping each other out. And then, of course, you get to stay up to date on what's going on with the show here as well. And then, if you again you do want to support the show, we are on Patreon as well. I think we have if $5 is the per month fee that we have going on right now. So if you want to show some support in other ways, Patreon's another way to do it. Otherwise, the best way is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So that one's free. So that doesn't cost you a dime. So Mike, anything else we want to add before we tie down for tonight?
Nope. I just want to say thanks to everybody who sent me messages while I wasn't feeling good and stuff like that. It meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
It was I kind of fell off the grid there for a little while and Haven't been posting a whole lot. Now that I'm feeling better, the old Farland terminal is going to start getting into some serious build. I've got section 5 is already designed, ready to be put up. Section 6 is in the design stage, and I have the lumber to put that up. So we are getting close to. I'd say by Christmas the bench work should be done by Christmas time, which was about the timeline I was hoping to get. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So and so it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot going on. But I just want to thank everybody, and you, including you, Andy. I mean, it meant the world to me, checking in on me and stuff like that. That was really cool because, like I said, I kind of fell off the grid there for a few days, and it does not feel good at 54 years old, not feeling good. That just sucks.
Yeah, and then
this adulting thing is bad.
Yeah, and then some of you may have seen in the chat tonight, Tony Dixon is up at the ER with his wife. So make sure that
prayers going out to you, buddy.
Yeah, Tony's a great guy, so make sure that we send him our support. So we're thinking of you here at Second Section. So let us know if you need anything, right?
Yep.
So other than that,
nope.
I think we're gonna Mike and I are gonna take off for tonight. We got to thank you guys again. Great show, great commentary in the chat, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks with Otter Valley. Good night, everybody.
Good night.